Clara was placed in her cradle as she got tired of their banter. She slept peacefully like a newborn kitten while embracing her legs. Fortunately, your grandfather managed to erase fallen extinction lightning's consciousness before dying. The previous first prince and his son got assassinated, so it is now ripe for the taking. Claire grinned mischievously. If you use that lightning elemental to cultivate your essence-gathering cultivation, then you will surely be more powerful than cultivators who cultivate in other sky-grade essence-gathering manuals. Claire smiled resplendently at the thought that her son will only get more powerful steadily as time passes by. Children only concentrate on one cultivation system at a time, while Davis happens to cultivate all three cultivation systems at the same time. Hence, in Claire's eyes, her son was just becoming more and more powerful by the day, leaving his peers in the dust. The next day. At the study. Davis sat cross-legged while examining the meridian refinement stage's cultivation process. Apparently, it looks like I have to refine the meridians in my body, and since I would cultivate with lightning attributed manual, I should make lightning pass through my meridians, a sky grade 1 at that. I am done for. This is obviously shock treatment. Isn't this even crueler than body tempering cultivation? His mind floated with images of people being fried to charcoal by lightning. Davis, are you ready? The door suddenly opened, and Claire walked in with a smile on her face. Yes, I'm ready. Davis gulped as that smile kind of looked evil to him. They then proceeded to a place that is designed for closed-door cultivations, called cultivation quarters. Relax. Father and Mother are here to help you suppress the sky-grade lightning elemental, don't fret over it. Claire comforted him as she can entirely see his nervousness when she suddenly walked in. Davis nodded and didn't say anything. They then made their way to a room in these quarters. There were more than 10 rooms in this place. Claire opened the door and walked inside, and he followed her. Inside there was a formation that was capable of suppressing the power of lightning elemental to a certain extent. Logan was seated at the side, obviously waiting for these two to come. Even though it was just easier for all three of them to send soul transmissions, they didn't communicate through that way. They didn't want to reveal Davis's soul-forging cultivation under any circumstances. Father, let's start. Somehow, Davis didn't want to show weakness in front of his father. Well, aren't you hasty? Logan commented and walked forwards. He looked at Claire and they both nodded their heads. Let's begin then. Davis, sit inside the formation's heart, and refine your meridians by circulating the energy while following the circulation method from Extinction Lightning Judgment Essence Gathering Cultivation Manual. You don't need to worry about the lightning elemental, as we will help you in suppressing it. Davis nodded as he took a deep breath before sitting in the middle of the formation. There were no words spoken further. Logan and Claire used the formation to control and refine the lightning elemental through the unique formation, and began sending the lightning essence energy to Davis with utmost caution. Davis began refining his meridians as he focused his mind on the energy that entered his body. The formation housed the fallen extinction lightning, as it also works as a suppressing formation, hence, the lightning elemental that would have instinctively fried them became suppressed enough to be refined. Furthermore, Logan and Claire took the brunt of the refinement of the berserk lightning energy, and only sent the tamed and refined lightning energy to Davis. Davis's meridians were already strengthened because he had reached the first stage in body tempering cultivation using tyrant body secrets. As he slowly circulated the lightning-attributed energy in his meridians, he felt a tingling sensation at the start, followed by a burning feeling. It felt as if he was electrocuted and corroded at the same time. Nevertheless, its effects were negligible since it's being suppressed by both his parents and the formation. So this is the fallen extinction lightning, a lightning elemental that equals 5th stage powerhouses, really powerful. It's not bad. I don't feel much pain. It is a good thing that Mother and Father are here. If not, I would have to cultivate from the bottom of the food chain if I truly were to truly be an orphan again. His thoughts ran astray as he felt confident enough to cultivate even without the utmost concentration. He slowly repeated the circulation method again and again until he refined his meridians to a concise level. The process lasted for about 5 long hours before he advanced to the meridian refinement stage. Just when he was about to shout out in excitement, a voice rang on his mind. Don't lose your concentration. We'll help you absorb the fallen extinction lightning. Immediately focus your soul on absorbing it now. Davis could feel his soul being invaded by the lightning elemental. He had his eyes closed, so he didn't see the fallen extinction lightning's form. In any case, he began absorbing it into his soul as instructed. Bzzz. Argh. Pain. Davis was instantly filled with extreme pain that rocked his soul. It felt like his thoughts were going haywire. He almost lost concentration but continued to grit his teeth. He knew he wouldn't be able to last longer, so he concentrated anew, using his whole consciousness this time to succeed without caring for any repercussions. The process lasted for a whole 5 minutes, which felt like an eternity to him before he fainted out of exhaustion. Logan and Claire both heaved a sigh of relief. They knew he had succeeded in absorbing the fallen extinction lightning, but also knew it was only possible thanks to his powerful soul that at least possessed the capability to hold the lightning elemental in his soul. After some time, Davis woke up. He checked his soul and saw a pentagram-shaped black lightning residing within. It maintained a certain distance from the death book. Seeing that both didn't interfere with each other, he inwardly heaved a sigh of relief. He then checked his surroundings and noticed that he was still in the same room. He saw his parents passionately kissing each other.
Hey everyone, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy the audiobooks, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to support us further, consider becoming a Patreon member. As a member, you'll gain the ability to request the next part of a novel audiobook I've uploaded, depending on your Patreon tier.
They were so into it that they didn't notice him waking up. Even a slight movement should be able to alert them, but they didn't seem to notice. Logan licked his lips with Claire's. He held her waist, and she cupped his cheeks. Her expression seemed to be sad as there were tears over her eyelids, and at the same time, her lips were savoring his taste as if it didn't want to let go. At first glance, it didn't seem like they were doing this for excitement. Davis didn't make a sound. He stayed silent for some time before they separated from each other's lips. He didn't hear them talking, so he imagined that they must have used soul transmission to speak with each other. After a few seconds, Davis trembled as if waking up just now. At that instant, they instantly separated from each other's embrace. Claire's face became red while Logan's lower garment had a tent. Davis chose to ignore it altogether before he closed his eyes and acted as if he was checking his state. That gave them enough time to be normal again. Something must have happened. He thought, it isn't normal for them to act like that in front of me. Wait, something seems to be wrong in my soul. Davis became startled. He immediately released his soul sense, and it extended up to 500 meters in a spherical radius. I reached peak level nascent soul stage. He advanced straight from mid-level to peak level while skipping high level. It wasn't as if his soul forging cultivation just skipped, it was just he didn't notice that he entered high-level nascent soul stage when he fainted out of exhaustion. Logan and Claire smiled as they knew the reason. Davis forgot that lightning has the effect temper one's soul. Hence, absorbing the low-level sky-grade lightning elemental became an incredible boon for him. He belatedly remembered that fact. He then abruptly felt complicated since his father also seemed to train in extinction lightning judgment, which meant that the fallen extinction lightning is heavily useful to him as well, but they decided to let it be and passed on the big pie to him. Not only was it heavily useful to Logan, but the fallen extinction lightning can also perhaps increase Logan's soul forging cultivation. However, Logan didn't take it selfishly, and left the imperial treasure to him. This also indirectly meant that they acknowledged him. That he is their rightful heir. Logan and Claire were both ecstatic that their son was able to achieve this feat of cultivating all three cultivation systems at the same time, at such a tender age. They were even more extremely proud when they realized he was just 5 years old. Davis was now able to use his first layer of Extinction Lightning Judgment. The first layer provided the ability to amplify his body with lightning. He can amplify his legs to move faster, clad his arms in lightning to paralyze, and corrode his opponent's flesh. He can even use it on his own brain to increase his thought process and analytical ability, but that requires an extremely high control over his lightning, or else he would just fry or corrode his own brain. The fallen Extinction Lightning, with its property, increased the effectiveness of his powers and battle prowess. After all, it adds an annihilative and corrosive effect to the lightning he employs. Since Davis has achieved basic proficiency in all three cultivation systems, he wanted to test the limitations of his death book as soon as possible. He didn't even know if it worked the same way or not anymore. Half a year passed. Logan, Claire, and Hendrickson taught him more about cultivation during this half-year period. However, they only taught him for at most an hour every day. They seemed like they were busy with something. He still didn't get a chance to use his death book because he felt like he was always being monitored. His parents were acting even more strangely. It was especially the case in this half a year. He knew that something fishy was going on here, but since his parents wouldn't tell him, then he didn't feel the need to ask. Davis went to ask his parents if he could practice his powers on live targets. His parents thought for a moment before they refused. Davis was adamant about it and proposed an idea to them. "Father, if you don't let me practice on live targets, how can I be an expert?" "Enough, Davis, how can you be adamant like this? You are just 5 years old, there's no need for you to fight people." "All right, Father, how about I take a step back and try my powers on restricted opponents who are in the prison?" "Huh? Why don't you take me on then?" Logan retorted, clearly annoyed. "But Father, I won't even be able to beat you, you are too powerful." Davis shamelessly gave up as he whined. Claire, who was beside, glanced at them and laughed. She sent a soul transmission to Logan. Logan's face changed. He then sighed and permitted him to go to prison. "Only this time will I be yielding to you, there's no next time. You hear me?" Logan made a face full of anger and berated him. "Yes. Thanks, Father," Davis chuckled. "Let's go." Logan then walked in the direction of the prison. "Okay." Davis obediently followed and put on a black robe to cover himself. On the way, for some reason, the palace guards and maids acted like they didn't see him. They only greeted the Emperor and the atmosphere seemed tense. He could feel that a soul technique was activated on him. He then knew that he was being cloaked by his father. Is it so bad for a child of royalty to go to the prison? Is that the reason? Davis thought as he felt like he couldn't understand the intricacies of the royal family. They then arrived in front of the prison. Logan stopped there while the prison guards went on their knees and greeted him. The guards looked at the Emperor with awe and reverence. The leader of the prison guard stepped up and bowed again. Only his face could be seen, which was pale. He was wearing a blue armor tinted with a yellow crest at the sides. "You are?" Reporting to the Emperor. "My name is Bowen." The previous leader of the prison guards colluded with the rebels. Fortunately, Logan, who found his betrayal, managed to kill him before he released all the prisoners. "Bowen, I see." The two of them then stayed silent. It can be seen that they were communicating through soul transmission. Bowen had a confused face, then nodded his head vehemently. Then all three of them entered the prison. Logan stopped cloaking Davis at this point. "You understand, right?" Logan asked him with a ruthless glare. "Yes, Your Majesty." Bowen replied meekly. He understood that, at this point, he shouldn't do anything the Emperor dislikes. Logan then left Davis there, not turning around to inform anything. Cough. "Your Highness, let me show you around the prison first." Bowen waved his hands. Okay. Davis cheerfully replied. Bowen then took him around the prison. While walking in the corridor, he informed Davis about the prisoners. There were cells on both sides of the corridor, which held the prisoners. While he explained, he just told about their crimes while leaving the gory part behind. After Davis heard about what he said, he couldn't help but cringe. Their crimes were devoid of humanity. But he didn't stop listening to him, nor did he command him to stop. Davis looked at the prisoners. All of them looked ruthless with no hint of humanity, while some seemed to act as if they were innocent, and then there were some prisoners who looked at him with lascivious eyes. Davis's eyes turned red. He glared at those prisoners one by one. He thought for a moment before questioning Bowen. Bowen. He suddenly interrupted him. Yes, Prince. Bowen looked at him. Why aren't these prisoners put to death? He glared at Bowen. It's not like that, Your Highness. The royal capital holds a public execution each month. They are put to death one by one. It also acts as a deterrent to other wicked criminals. Until then, they stay here waiting for their deaths. Bowen explained. Do you have a list of the prisoners held in here? I do, but what is it for, Your Highness? Bowen was confused, but he still handed over the list from his spatial ring. Davis took the list and saw the name of the prisoner, who was going to be executed this month. Wagner. I saw him before, lead me to him. Davis didn't reply to Bowen but just commanded him. Yes, Bowen didn't refuse, though he was confused. What is a 5-year-old child going to do meeting a prisoner? Make him change his ways. Heck, I'll be damned. Davis and Bowen made their way to the cell, where Wagner was locked inside. The formation in that cell was active, and it prevented Wagner from being able to use his cultivation, and the formation also made him unable to see what was going on outside. Wagner, who was undoubtedly a male, looked at the ceiling with a blank expression on his face. It was as if he was considering when he was going to die this month. Davis then saw a circle switch near the cell's gate. He pressed it. Nothing seemed to happen visibly, but Wagner turned around his face. He saw a small child with blonde hair along with a prison guard. Don't tell me you brought a brat for me to enjoy. Wagner seemed to jest, but it was obvious that he viewed Davis with lascivious eyes. Why are you looking at me like that? Davis only asked a question. He already made up his mind to make him his first target, but he still wanted an impetus. Of course, to brutally murder and rape you. Wagner's breathing hastened as a crazy glint encroached his eyes. Davis became thoroughly disgusted, but his face remained the same. It was written in the records that Wagner had necrophilia, and it didn't seem to be faked. On the other hand, Wagner didn't care for anything as he was fated to die this month. It didn't matter whether he offended a big person or not, much less a child. I understand, Davis replied calmly. He then switched off the mechanism. You understand? Bowen became utterly dumbfounded. He couldn't understand where this conversation was headed to. Bowen, leave the prison. Davis commanded. I can't do that, Your Highness. Bowen was stunned before he replied with a calm expression on his face. You won't listen to my command? Davis narrowed his eyes. I was told by His Majesty to protect you no matter what happens. Bowen shook his head. He looked as if he wasn't going to leave Davis alone, no matter what. Davis slightly narrowed his eyes, but then a smile lit up over his face. I see, then I will have no choice but to say to my father that you molested me in the prison. What? Bowen couldn't believe his ear. What kind of words did this 5-year-old child utter? His mind momentarily stopped working, unable to form a reply. I said that I would have no choice but to say that you violated me in the prison. That is totally different than what you said before. Bowen started sweating heavily, but he didn't dare retort. Could it be that all the imperial family members are like this? This, Your Highness, don't make this difficult for me. I was only tasked to protect you in this prison. Do you think my imperial father won't act against you? Do you think that the emperor will believe your words or mine? Davis profoundly asked, as if there's an underlying meaning in his words. What did I do to deserve this? This child is a demon in human form. Bowen was on the verge of tears, and he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How about this? You're only tasked to protect me, right? Stand guard near the entrance of the prison. This way you can both protect me and do what I told you, right? You think that these prisoners who are suppressed by these formations can harm me? This? All right. Bowen considered a moment before yielding. He was truly afraid that the little prince, no, the little demon would do as he said. Good, you're not allowed to use your senses on me, and you're not allowed to peek either. I will come to you to accept food every 4 hours, and with this, you can verify my safety every now and then. This? I understand. Although Bowen felt reluctant, what else could he reply? He already accepted His Highness' conditions once, and it did seem that he was able to protect the prince through this method. He at least had the confidence that no matter what happened, he would be able to protect him in the prison. Only he couldn't understand why the prince forbade him from using his soul sense on him. He imagined that it must have to do something with the imperial family's secret, so he didn't dare to ask. After all, a child, especially an imperial child, wouldn't come to this place just to sightsee, right? Bowen inwardly thought he left that part of the corridor and made his way towards the prison entrance. Davis checked his surroundings before tugging on the soul, summoning the death book. A black aura encircled around him, as it changed into a hazy appearance. A book appeared on his hand as he looked at it. It was pure black on both sides of the note, and there wasn't anything written on the cover. He opened the book and turned the pages only to see that it was pure white, without a single speck of dust. He pressed the switch again, only to see Wagner moving his right arm up and down. Honestly, there's no redemption for a bastard like you. Davis wrote his name while he felt disgusted. He'll be sure to give him a worse death. Equals 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 equals. 3 days later. Davis was still roaming inside the imperial prison, experimenting with the death book. In the imperial castle, throne hall. Logan was seated in his throne while Claire sat beside him, but both of their faces appeared extremely grave. The whole throne hall remained crowded even though it was 100 meters long and wide. People were assembled here, ranging from middle-class officials to high-class officials from the imperial palace and the army. The atmosphere enshrouding here was tense. No one dared to utter a word, afraid that they might be cast out or outright killed. Creak. A sound made from opening the huge door of the throne hall echoed, making the people present slightly shudder, as if it was a crack from the underworld. An older adult with a commanding disposition walked in with great strides. He was covered in dark blue armor, and he held his grand headgear in his arms. He walked forward until he was in line with 5 other men who were clad in different yet luxurious garments. He kneeled on a single leg on the floor and clasped his hands. Reporting to the Emperor. He took a deep breath and shouted. The Albert Kingdom, which is under our jurisdiction, has been conquered by invading forces 2 days ago. Beads of sweat formed on his face. We were unable to defend against the invasion of the combined alliance of the Raven Empire and Tritor Empire. With a bang that caused numerous people to flinch, he kowtowed. We were made to retreat in the face of the giant threat, and I cowardly made the decision for the army to retreat to the imperial capital. Please let this cowardly one die and atone for this mistake. Your Majesty. Without hesitation, he instantly drew his sword from his scabbard and proceeded to stab it into his heart. Bang, robust yet formless energy came out from nowhere, and knocked the sword out of his hand. He stared blankly, not knowing who did it. It's fine, this Emperor forgives you, Supreme Army Commander Randall, Logan replied with a calm expression on his face. Instead of making our army die a cruel and meaningless death, you made the right choice by giving the order to tactically retreat to the imperial capital in exchange for your own reputation. Randall's eyes became moist as he felt incredibly moved. He hardened his heart and made a great sacrifice by ruining his own reputation when retreating, and he cared for his subordinates, so he couldn't let them die a meaningless death. He didn't think anyone or even the new emperor would understand him or his decision to retreat. So when he came to the imperial palace, he was prepared to die by taking his own life in return for his failure. Logan knew that Randall was a loyal commander in the army. As far as he knew, his imperial father would praise him a lot for his bravery and courage, but he also mentioned how he was compassionate and loyal. Logan also knew that Randall's subordinates admired and obeyed him, so losing him would mean a great loss to the already weakened Lowered Empire, as the army morale would be at an all-time low. Logan, the current emperor, should have in all right beheaded Randall by himself for the mistakes he had committed to establish his authority in the throne hall. But he also understood that doing so was foolish, as it would only lead to dissatisfaction and chaos among his men. In reality, he had started to doubt whether if there were any people already planning to desert his lowered empire. How dare you show your face in front of the emperor after that miserable defeat? Instantly show yourself out. A handsome middle-aged man with sharp facial features berated the army commander, Randall. His face looked sharp, yet his eyes were slightly lazy, but even then, he exuded a solemnness that didn't give someone the opportunity to mock him. He had lush green hair that is neck-length long. He is none other than the current head of the Calden family, one of the two noble families which sided with the imperial family to quell the rebels. Now, Duke Evan Calden, there's no need for that, Our Majesty has already forgiven him. Another middle-aged man replied with a calm expression on his face. He looked dashing and had bright red hair that cascaded down to waist length. He is none other than the current head of the Nolan family, the other of the two noble families that sided with the imperial family during the rebellion. Humph, are you in support of a coward in the midst of a war, Duke John Nolan? Duke Evan Calden questioned. There's no need to fight among ourselves now, and show some restraint, you're in front of the Emperor, Duke Calden. Hendrickson calmly interjected, as if he was tired of this farce. Duke Evan Calden harumphed and said nothing more. He was not that afraid of an emperor that was just a little more powerful than him. What he didn't know was that Logan had already broken through to adult soul stage. If he knew, then he would have not dared to be this disrespectful towards the young emperor. The other two were silent as if this had nothing to do with them. They were the leaders of the Ruthless Sword sect and Piercing Dragon sect. Both of the sects were sky-grade sects, albeit low-level, in which they only had a single Lost stage powerhouse sitting on the helm of their respective sects. Nevertheless, the current imperial Lowert family wasn't that different from them since they had lost most of their power due to the rebellion. The destruction of an empire has nothing to do with those two sects, but since they have connections to the imperial family previously, there will probably be a chance for them to get eliminated by the invading empires. They were here to decide whether to help the empire cross over this calamity or not. Enough. Logan echoed, his voice influenced almost everyone present visibly as they subconsciously turned attentive. His voice was magical, along with undulations that surprised each and everyone present. Adult soul stage. The five of them were astonished. They then replied in unison as they bowed, "Congratulations to the Emperor on breaking through to the adult soul stage." The crowd in the back echoed as well. Logan nodded his head casually. "Randall, when exactly will they invade the imperial capital?" he questioned. "Reporting to your Majesty. The invading empires will march here within a day." Randall replied to the best of his knowledge. Communications were lost, and the scouts no longer replied to him. This was the best answer he could give out right now. There was a momentary silence in the throne hall. "This is bad. There's no way we will be able to survive. Should we run?" Various whispers and soul transmissions were swirling around the throne hall simultaneously. "Silence!" Hendrickson bellowed. The crowd stood horrified and shut their mouths. Logan knew that this scenario remained hopeless. Most likely, the probable situation is that they would have to escape and reclaim the empire later. Logan felt like he was stuck in a mire now. On the one hand, he felt like he had to protect his family no matter what. On the other hand, if he escaped, he felt like he was acting opposite to whatever he learned in his life, and that he would have no face to meet his ancestors after death. The Lorette family had always heavily valued morals and victory. From an early age, Logan was influenced by these values. To run and leave his empire to be pillaged, isn't that just the opposite of its teachings? Whoa! Suddenly, the sound of a war horn being blown echoed throughout the imperial capital. Everyone was suddenly petrified. A random guard came inside the throne room with hurried strides and reported, "Your Majesty. This is bad. The invaders have arrived behind our northern gates." Logan had an ugly expression on his face. So soon? He immediately looked at Claire, who was silently seated beside him, and his heart was almost convinced to escape when he heard a voice. "Your Majesty, do you plan to escape?" The two sect leaders asked in unison with a cold face. Logan became startled. He shot a glare at those two sect leaders, trying to obtain something out of their faces. He could vaguely see that they were not afraid of the consequences of betraying him. He knew that if he tried to escape, these two could betray him any time they saw fit. He could even see them probably handing over his head to appease the invading empires. A hand grabbed Logan's palm, and he turned back to see Claire smiling beautifully at him. The same smile that made him remember the vow they took together when they married each other. "We live together and die together." Logan tightly grabbed her hand and nodded at her. He then turned around to them and majestically uttered, "Escape. Are you two so afraid of death that you would support the prospect of me escaping so that you could escape yourselves with the remaining shameless faces you have left?" The two sect leaders' faces flushed quickly with a red hue by being berated in this throne hall, where many people were witnessing their grandeur. Just when they were about to counterattack with words, they heard the Emperor's voice again. "I'm going to war. If you have the guts, follow me or else scram the hell out of my empire." Logan shouted with fervor and made his way out of the throne room, while heading towards the north gate of the imperial capital, making Claire also followed behind. The two sect leaders were left with no choice but to follow. The other four of them also followed behind the Emperor as he walked with a grand disposition, and witnessing that the Emperor himself was leading them, the crowd automatically followed behind them. Logan abruptly sent a soul transmission to Imperial Advisor Hendrickson. "Escape with Davis and Clara." Hendrickson made a slight pause in his steps, but kept walking instantly. "Clara is in the Empress's quarters while Davis is in the Imperial prison, safely guarded. Find a chance to slip out, immediately secure them and escape." Logan sent a soul transmission again. The war was also why he and Claire allowed Davis into the prison. To let him experience some combat so that he could adapt to their current situation. He didn't think that before they could get him back, the main invading army would already be here at the capital. The main invading army's speed was lightning fast than he expected. He knew this must be the work of numerous assassins executing their scouts. Logan then immediately told Hendrickson on how to deactivate the formation guarding the Empress's quarters. As for what that formation was for, one could guess easily. Logan then turned around his head, as if checking who were all currently following behind him. Hendrickson imperceptibly nodded his head, so no one ended up noticing their conversation. As for Logan's soul-forging cultivation, it was too powerful for them to detect his soul transmission. They then continued to travel towards the north gate. Not even halfway there, Hendrickson suddenly echoed, "Your Majesty. Your subordinate has forgotten his weapon in the Imperial castle, and without that, I would not be able to use my full strength. Your subordinate will quickly return once I retrieve my weapon back." "What? Are you scared?" Logan shot a glare at him as his killing intent erupted. "Are you trying to escape?" "I wouldn't dare, Your Majesty. If you command me to die, then I will quickly kill myself to prove my innocence." Hendrickson trembled as if his plan was seen through. The other five of them thought that it was strange. They heard that Imperial Advisor Hendrickson was brave and courageous, as well as a loyal man. They didn't expect him to back out at this last moment. "Kill yourself then," Logan commanded in a cold-hearted tone. "Yes. Hendrickson severely trembled. He took out a normal sword from his spatial ring, and stabbed right at his heart as he pulled his arm towards himself. Poochie! Bang! Just when his sword was already halfway to his heart after piercing the body, some kind of energy knocked the sword off from his hands. I now know your loyalty. You can go right now and quickly come back because we need your strength in this war. Logan replied, his face still cold. Yes, your majesty. Hendrickson then left to the Imperial Castle while healing the wound in his chest. Does anyone here would like to get their weapons back? Logan asked with an indifferent face. He was emitting a dense killing intent that made the other four shut their mouths. Logan then continued to travel while the others followed behind. Wasn't that a lame reason to use? But thanks to his actions, I was able to successfully send him out without much suspicion. Logan slightly grinned while he started to take flight from the platform. Revolving core stage cultivators were able to fly, after all, not to mention that Logan is at the Law Seed stage, the 5th stage of essence gathering cultivation. His speed was even greater than mere revolving core cultivators could reach. Let's make haste. He echoed and sped off towards the northern gate. == 10 minutes later. Hendrickson made his way to the Imperial Castle, and went to his room before sneaking out stealthily dressed in a black robe that covered his features. He arrived in front of the Empress's quarters and knocked out the hidden experts and maids. He went inside and took Clara into his arms. Clara was sleeping, so she didn't notice and cry. He covered her with a black sheet, and then made his way out. Just when he headed out of the room, he saw a flash of light. Slash! A blinding light slashed at his head. Hendrickson immediately ducked down. He rapidly retreated and saw the attacker's attire. Assassin. Nicely evaded. The assassin's tone sounded surprised. Brother, are you here to abduct that royal baby as well? Yes, Hendrickson replied with a hoarse voice. Hee hee, you sure are kind, only knocking out those guards. You wah. Clara, who was in Hendrickson's arms, was startled awake, and she immediately cried upon seeing strange people surrounding her. Brother, just leave the baby, I won't make this difficult for you. TCH, trash trying to waste my time. Hendrickson immediately took out his prized sword. He released his peak-level silver stage battle aura that radiated a fiendish might. The assassin visibly flinched. Brother, it's a misunderstanding, you can have the baby, and we'll have the dash. Boom. Hendrickson immediately covered the distance between him and slashed, not even seeing the result of his attack. He then made his way out the Imperial Castle, and to the prison in a hurried manner. Did they find out where the first prince is? This is bad. Logan Lowrit. Get out here now, and face our Emperor. Logan Lowrit, you coward, get the fuck here now. Cowardly Emperor, show yourself. Various degenerating cries were heard behind the northern gate of the Imperial capital. The allied warriors of the two invading empires were throwing out various provocations. They didn't seem to be afraid as the two emperors of their own empires were standing behind them. Ha ha ha, it seems like we will be able to win this war without incurring many casualties. A hearty laugh sounded out. Surely, didn't we ally for this endeavor? Jajaj, an eerie laugh sounded out, but it almost sounded depraved. The man who heartily laughed looked fat yet strong with bulging arms. He had two luscious beauties on his thighs. He was holding their waists while flirting with them and commenting about the war. He is none other than the current Emperor of the Raven Empire, Mike Raven. The other man who laughed eerily looked thin and cunning. He just provided these two beauties to the fat man, either enriching his relationship with the fat emperor or plotting something. He is none other than the Emperor of the Triter Empire, Ken Triter. Two bastards who dared to invade my empire. Come out. An angry voice could be heard out loud as it resounded through the whole army. Ah! He is here. A middle-aged man beside Emperor Raven voiced. "TCH, how can I enjoy these beauties now? His timing cannot be any worse." Emperor Raven had dissatisfaction etched on his face. "Emperor Raven can enjoy these beauties later, and I'm sure these gifts will be worth your time." A voluptuous woman, who was wearing revealing clothes, chimed in with an alluring voice. She was beside Emperor Trida. "Haha, you are right, my daughter-in-law." Emperor Raven laughed. The four of them simultaneously flew out and stared at Logan and his subordinates in the airspace near the northern gate. "Ha ha ha, little Emperor, you sure are powerful." Adult soul stage around 30 years old. Age. Both of the emperors cackled eerily, yet they were inwardly relieved that they had made this move sooner. Or else, wouldn't this treasure, known as the Lowered Empire, be out of their sights and hands after a few years? "Greetings, allow me to introduce myself formally. I am the Emperor of the Raven Empire, Mike Raven." Emperor Raven introduced himself to the Lowered Emperor, followed by Ken Trida. Ken Trida, Emperor of the Trida Empire. Logan looked at the two people who looked contrasting yet had the same disposition. He couldn't help but question coldly. "Aren't you ashamed of yourselves, teaming up to beat an empire which has already lost its strength during the rebellion? Shame. Can you eat it? Can you change it to cultivation resources? Heh, stop your nonsense, little Emperor." Emperor Raven mockingly laughed. "Jeej, we do possess shame, but do you think that we are supposed to attack when you are recovered and strong, naive? This is the world of the strong, and weaklings can only beg and grovel." Emperor Trida grinned deviously. "Oh? You two think you can defeat us with this lineup? Don't think you will be safe enough to leave in one piece." Logan spat out with a cold expression on his face. "Haha, you are right. Everyone, I, Mike Raven, will not destroy anyone who does not help the Lowered Emperor. In fact, I will award you with the plundered riches. How about it?" Those behind him. Emperor Raven shot a greedy look to the people behind Logan. Logan was waiting for this exact moment as well. He was not afraid but wanted to see who and all will choose to desert him in this hopeless war. But right at this moment, he and Claire felt the soul marks they left on Davis being erased, their expressions waning into despair. Logan and Claire looked at each other with apprehension in their eyes. The disappearance of the soul mark could only mean that Davis had either died or the soul mark they had placed on his soul had been erased by some method. The soul mark Logan left had been relatively gentle, not leaving an ounce of heaviness or restriction in Davis's soul. Hence, the soul mark can also be easily dealt with by any third-stage soul-forging cultivators without much trouble. Logan and Claire clearly trembled, wanting to rush to see Davis's well-being, yet now, they could only hope that Hendrickson had rescued Davis in time. There was a moment of silence before a voice sounded out. "Do you promise not to touch the Ruthless Sword Sect and Piercing Dragon Sect?" The two sect leaders who were behind Logan came forward together. "Of course, I have heard of your famous names across the continent, Sect Leader Heian and Sect Leader Pedro." "Good, then we'll sit this one out." Heian, the sect leader of Ruthless Sword Sect, accepted and withdrew. "Your Majesty, this isn't considered betrayal, as we are just going to watch from the sidelines. The result doesn't concern us as we are staying out of this mess." Pedro, the sect leader of Piercing Dragon Sect, gave out some trivial reasons as he moved out of their way. Logan didn't even glance at them, and was just looking at the two emperors coldly. "Anyone else? Our promise still stands, and we absolutely won't attack anyone who stays out of this war." Emperor Raven still expected some people to defect, as he could see some hesitation in the two noble family heads. The two noble family heads looked like they were in deep contemplation. After a few seconds of consideration, they raised their heads and declared, "We will stand by the Lowered Empire, hence, nothing will stand in our way to protect our empire." Not expecting the two noble family heads to reject, Emperor Raven frowned. "Ha ha ha." Logan laughed heartily. He didn't expect that this would happen, but he held hope. After all, the three families crossed the rebellion together. Emperor Raven, do you think that those who have crossed the rebellion with me can betray the Empire or me that easily? If they wanted to betray, they would have done it long ago during the rebellion. Logan indifferently said. So what? I've still got a proposal. Oh, little Emperor, we both know that we don't have to harm each other. If we fight, we cannot say who might win this battle. Emperor Trider abruptly said. Heh. What is this? Are you backing out? Logan sneered. It isn't we who needs to back out, but you. Emperor Raven shot a look at Claire, who was beside Logan. What's this? Isn't the Empress pregnant? What a joyous affair. Do you want to see your wife brutally murdered and violated before you die? Emperor Trider shouted out, his voice echoing throughout the battlefield. You dare. Logan immediately tried to rush out but received a soul transmission, prompting him to a halt. Dear. Don't go. They're provoking you. Claire shouted in his mind. Her stomach was a little bloated, as a baby was forming inside her womb. Logan stopped but shot a glance filled with hatred towards these two bastard emperors. He could only swallow down this humiliation. If he went out to fight, one would hold him back while the other might do something worse to Claire. That's why I've got an idea. Why don't we play a game? We make our armies fight each other. If your side wins, then we will immediately back out of this empire. But if we win, hand over the lowered empire to us. You see, we don't want to pillage this beautiful capital filled with beautiful women. Emperor Trider laughed deviously. Isn't the end already clear? You bastards will surely win. What is this game for? Further humiliation. Logan gritted his teeth and shouted in anger. Are you up for this game or not? The two emperors further laughed, clearly wanting to humiliate him before enjoying the looted riches. Logan gnashed his teeth so hard that blood was coming out his mouth. His eyes spewed flames of anger and hatred. If he made a move, he could say goodbye to Claire without a doubt, but if he doesn't make a move, then his army will be decimated. I thought I would be able to die proudly defending my empire. Naive, I was too naive. I couldn't give my family up. I'm a failure of an emperor. His palms were bleeding as he put so much pressure with his fingers while tightly clenching his fists. He wanted nothing more than to ruthlessly hack them to pieces, but he was powerless to do so. At this time, he received a sound transmission from Hendrickson. His face immediately turned ugly. What did you do to my son? Oh? Did the assassins I sent succeed? No worries, I will release your son if you accept the game and win. Claire became stunned for a second. No. She miserably let out a scream hearing the conversation between them. No. Am I going to lose him again? I don't want to lose him again. This isn't happening, no, 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 no. She almost started having a mental breakdown, while hovering in the air. Logan grit his teeth, as he wished that he could kill, and slice their corpses into 10,000 pieces. He wished that he could subject them to every available torture method in this world. Your Majesty, allow me and my subordinates to leave our lives for the Empire. A voice could be heard behind him. He checked behind to see Commander Randall kneeling in front of him. You all will die. Logan replied, his voice heavy and sorrowful. Randall kowtowed, I know, we just request your Majesty to give us a chance to prove ourselves on the battlefield, that we aren't cowards who would run without facing our enemies. Please let us get back the honor we lost in the Alfred Kingdom. Logan became moved. He etched this scene into his heart as he turned back to look at those two emperors and unwaveringly said, I agree. Good, let's sit back and enjoy this show to our heart's content. Emperor Trider laughed as he returned towards their camp. An army of 2,500,000 soldiers marched outside the imperial capital. Raven Empire had 1 million soldiers, while the Trider Empire had about 1,500,000 soldiers. They were all cultivators and most of them were at the first stage while some of them were at the second stage, and very few were at the third stage, most likely the captains and commanders. As for their supreme commanders, perhaps they were at the fourth stage. Soldiers mostly trained in essence-gathering cultivation, and secondly in body-tempering cultivation. Hence, their soul-forging cultivation could be said to be pretty much non-existent, or extremely weak. Soul-forging cultivation manuals were a luxury, and perhaps over 95% of the population in the Grand Sea continent does not have access to it. Hence, the road to training in soul-forging cultivation required status, wealth, talent, and luck. Looking at their lineup, most people of the lowered empire realized that their enemies probably conducted a mass recruiting in their empires to invade their empire, but no one knew if this matter was true or not. The soldiers of the Raven Empire were clad in black armor, while the Trita Empire's soldiers were clad in reddish-gray armor. An army of 1 million soldiers stood outside the gates of the imperial capital. They were the soldiers of the lowered empire. They were clad in blue armor, and their presence on the battlefield was imposing and heavy, but their counterpart released a heavier presence and pressure at them, rendering their courage and battle experience almost useless. The lowered empire's army lineup was the same as the invading empire, only having experts up to the third stage when excluding the supreme army commander, Randall. A war filled with cultivators wasn't like a mortal's war. Whoever possessed the greatest fist ends up winning, but the lowered empire seemed to have only one such individual while the other two empires possessed many. Ho, this is pretty pitiable, why don't we add something into the fray? Emperor Raven shook his head and laughed. You are right, Jajaj. Little Emperor, you can call people from the imperial capital to fight for you. Anyone below the third stage is welcome. Emperor Trita added fuel to the flames. Logan had an ugly expression on his face. Involving the people of the Empire was forbidden as the morale would drop, and even his own people might defect. Not only would he become a laughingstock, but all the other empires might besmirch him at the same time. Logan's pupils trembled as he could see that this war is utterly hopeless. The respective armies of the three empires assembled themselves in various battle formations that were used for warring, and let out an imposing war cry from time to time, as if they measured each other's capacity. The lowered army fortified themselves on the walls of the northern gate. Ground troops were set in front of the gate as well. Various magical beast mounts were also used, forming cavalry and aerial troops flying in midair, overlooking the battlefield scenery. The Raven army took the west front of the northern gate, while the Trita army took the east front of the northern gate. This formation persisted clearly to attack the lowered empire from both sides, pinning them down. After all, they could successfully flank them from both sides if the lowered army were to be caught off guard. There were also many experts atop the walls of the imperial capital who were observing the war with their senses. Boom! 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 The war drums started to echo throughout the battlefield, signaling the start of the war. Each commander of the respective armies took charge and led the soldiers into war. On top of the northern gate, in an inconspicuous corner, a silhouette of a person wearing a black robe could be seen. The silhouette was there for about some time listening to the conversation of these people above in the air. Its eyes were scarlet red as it scanned around the battlefield, a murderous light dwelling in it. Its lips moved as if it were talking to someone. You're the ones who came to invade, so don't expect any mercy from me. It looked at the hope-ridden battlefield and uttered in a low yet hateful voice. Die. Thump. A big heartbeat sound, akin to a loud resounding thunderclap, reverberated across the battlefield. Multiple screams of agony echoed across the battlefield as more than 2 million soldiers clutched their chests as they fell to their knees. The ones on the magical beast mounts dropped to the ground, and numerous aerial troops who were above fell towards the surface. A second later, everyone collapsed to the ground, like a pillar that had lost its foundation. There was absolute silence on the battlefield, and no one alive dared to talk. It felt like their souls had fallen into purgatory for a brief moment, silent yet deadly. No blood and no sound remained on the battlefield. This scene was so unbelievable that they couldn't fathom what had happened right now. The two emperors who were so ecstatic were now trembling in fear, their eyes wide and their faces pale with fright. They could not even detect anything as their army was massacred in the blink of an eye. Logan, who was in despair, suddenly trembled with excitement even though he couldn't believe his eyes. The reason for his excitement was because he could see that his army was not targeted for some reason. Logan wasn't a fool. He instantly clasped his hands with a boom, as the air reverberated with his might, and bowed down in the air with the utmost respect. Senior, this lowly emperor is extremely thankful for your aid. Do I have the honor to invite you to the imperial castle of my lowered empire? Silence again. Absolute silence. A few seconds passed, yet there was no answer, and a few minutes later, there was still no answer. All of them present here were obedient like a child, yet no one dared to disrupt the silent atmosphere. No voice could still be heard. The two emperors heaved a sigh of relief, while Logan smiled as if a burden had been taken away from his heart. Sect leaders of the Ruthless Sword Sect and Piercing Sword Sect, are you still going to watch by the sidelines? Logan asked coldly. The two of them immediately came behind him, and hurriedly conveyed. Emperor, we didn't betray you. We only acted with the safety of our sects in our minds. Yes, yes. We didn't have any thoughts of betrayal, and we only sat this one out instead of joining the other side. Logan watched them with an amusing gaze and harumphed coldly. He couldn't afford to make them an enemy right now. Hence, he turned around and viewed the two emperors with a gloating expression on his face. Huh? Why are you two bastards still staying here? Aren't your armies utterly decimated? Hurry up and scram. Logan laughed heartily. He felt like still killing them, but he knew what was important to him. Don't you dare to be haughty in front of us. We will readdress this humiliation at a later date. Oh? You're saying that you're going to pick a fight with Senior? Emperor Raven and Emperor Trider's face changed. They didn't dare say anything, and the four of them immediately left in the direction of their respective empires along with the surviving entourage. They immediately left because they didn't even know if that Senior was still in the lowered empire's airspace, watching them with cold and indifferent eyes. Their losses were immense and they've lost their entire military prowess, and are now vulnerable to all other empires. So if they don't return to their respective empires, then they will suffer the same fate as once lowered empire did, being invaded by other empires. Claire looked at Logan with a wronged expression on her face. Logan then immediately remembered that those two empires abducted his son. His face turned ugly. Damn. I was so immersed at the thought of defeating them. I forgot about Davis. Regret. Extreme regret. He felt like utter sh*t right now for getting complacent with his victory over the two empires. Claire knew that he had forgotten temporarily. Even so, she did not blame him. She thought this was perhaps what being an emperor meant. To only care about one's empire at times of war. Don't worry. I'll get him. I swear I'll return with him. If I can't, then take care of Clara. Logan immediately left chasing those two emperors who had gone at least more than 1,000 meters away from him. Don't go. I don't want to lose you too. Claire cried out and tried to follow after him. He hardened his heart and didn't look back or reply to her. The two family heads and the others who were there immediately stopped Claire from following the emperor. They received a soul transmission from Logan, so they could only hold her back and try to protect her. Just when he was halfway there, he received a sound transmission from Hendrickson. == A few minutes earlier, while Hendrickson had just secured Clara. In the Imperial prison, Davis was still experimenting on the prisoners when, unbeknownst to him, a silhouette in black robes entered the prison. There was no one standing guard before the entrance. The silhouette entered and started searching. It went through various corridors when suddenly a voice rang out. I'll avenge my comrades. // The silhouette easily dodged the attack and commented with a concealed yet mocking voice, Oi, if you're going to sneak attack, at least do it sneakily. You wretched assassin, die. Bowen slashed his sword furiously at the assassin. He felt intense regret seeing his comrades die one by one from inside the prison through special means. The silhouette kept dodging his furious slashes. The assassin suddenly saw an opening and kicked Bowen in his stomach. Bowen felt his stomach rumbling while he was sent flying. He instantly realized that the assassin was way more powerful than him. Davis was near, so he heard the commotion and came to check. Davis had no idea what was going on here, but soon as he saw the silhouette in black robes, he had an inkling of what was going on. "Oh, the kid is here, lucky, hee." The assassin laughed without care. "Who are you, mister?" Davis asked with an innocent expression on his face. "Prince Davis, run." Bowen gritted his teeth and shouted as he had lost all hope in being able to protect Davis. "You shut up." The assassin swirled his body and kicked Bowen's head, instantly rendering him unconscious. Why did you beat him?" Davis revealed a frightened expression on his face, but he could tell that someone was now targeting him. "Haha, Prince Davis, no need to worry. I've been tasked by your imperial father to rescue you, and this guard just won't let me take you away from here. My name is Tyke." The assassin removed his hood. He possessed a handsome face that made him very easy to approach. "Is it true? But why does my imperial father need to rescue me?" Davis questioned. "You don't know, your highness. The war between our Lord Empire and two other empires, the Raven Empire and Traitor Empire, is ongoing for more than a year." "Really? Will my imperial father be able to win?" Davis asked worriedly. Inwardly, he became astonished as he finally knew what had and still has been plaguing his parents for so long. He had tried to find out before, but no one surprisingly let out a word of it. Unlike modern Earth, the information could be easily suppressed as long as people looked the other way, and the imperial castle was an enclosed space where information could be easily contained or let out depending upon the brass. "There is no way our emperor will be able to win against two empires, that's why we are going to escape," Tyke explained. Okay, so father did send you to rescue me, yay." Davis cheered. His expression was as he had entirely believed him. "Yes, your highness, let's go." Tyke equally encouraged but sneered inwardly, and he felt somewhat pleasurable to trap a prince with cheap tricks. "Okay." Davis smiled as he held Tyke's hand over his own accord. Tyke almost laughed, but he kept his cool and smiled refreshingly at the prince. They looked as if they were father and son, happily walking while holding each other's hand. Tyke felt increasingly wanting to tease the prince. He didn't think tricking a child of higher status can be this addicting and easy. His lips were slightly twitching, wanting to remove his own facade so that he could see the stupid expression on the prince's face. His eyes lit up as he thought up a plan. Just when they were at the entrance, Tyke suddenly uttered, Prince. I just remembered that I was sent by the invading empires and not your imperial father." You're lying." Davis made a surprised sound and an expression that said that he didn't believe him at all. Tyke slowly turned around, his face filled with scars while not looking handsome anymore. He wanted to see the terror on the prince's face, so that he can finally proceed to knock him out and abduct him. Davis suddenly let out a mocking expression, his lips curving into a grin. Tyke became astonished as he realized that the prince didn't seem to be terrorized. "Why don't we end this farce, Mr. Casper?" Davis calmly spoke, his adorable eyes becoming abnormally sharp. Tyke's pupils dilated as he immediately felt that something was wrong and jumped back. His instincts as an assassin were screaming for him to retreat. However, his eyes that were wide open turned soulless, and before long, he then started spilling out any information about the current situation he knew before he clenched his heart and died. Davis removed Assassin Casper's spatial ring, and bound it as his own. He then erased the soul marks of his father and mother using the power of the Death Book. During the experiments, he noticed that the death book inside his soul emits a dark and perhaps an evil-like energy which is especially useful to corrode and exterminate souls. With this kind of energy at his disposal, he found it extremely easy to get rid of his parents' soul marks that hovered in his soul sea like a floating rock in the ocean. He then wore the low-level sky-grade black robe, which was given to him by Logan. It conceals a person's cultivation undulations deeply. He then proceeded to store Casper's corpse in the spatial ring, as he made his way to the northern gate. A few minutes later, after he left, Hendrickson reached the prison. He was incredibly angry to see all the guards before the entrance was brutally murdered. He went inside furiously, only to see the head guard, Bowen, unconscious, and the prince missing. He then woke Bowen up and managed to learn that Davis had been abducted. He then took out his crystal and reported it to Logan. After arriving at the north gate, Davis saw how his father despaired as well as how his mother got humiliated by them. With a hateful expression on his face, he imagined that he would immediately give the two emperors cruel deaths, but then realized that their soul was more powerful than his killing prowess with the death book by a few unknown levels and stages. Davis had reached low-level infant soul stage while he was in prison. He had found that the death book can absorb the souls that it kills, and refines it to increase his soul-forging cultivation. He was already on the verge of breaking through earlier from the peak level, so this ability had helped him a lot in breaking to the infant soul stage. However, it cost the lives of a few prisoners as some of their soul-forging cultivation were very weak. The people above the battlefield then talked about their armies fighting each other as Davis silently waited for his opportunity to massacre them. He used his death god sense, the ability he gained after reaching the infant soul stage during his stay in the prison, to write the names of all the soldiers and commanders of the opposing army. He used the death book in tune with his soul sense to use the death god sense. Using it, he could see the names and lifespans of all the people who were within the range of his soul sense. The death god sense was used along with his death god eyes. Hence, his mind worked fast enough to cast the names on the death book residing in his soul. His soul force did all the work at extreme speed, writing all 2 million names within a minute on the death book. After massacring them while watching it with cold eyes, Davis didn't opt to absorb their deceased souls, afraid that he felt that he would get caught. He felt that the gathering of millions of souls might attract attention, and he needed to be closer to a corpse to absorb it as far as he knew. Hence, the 2 million plus souls had all gone to waste. Perhaps if he absorbed it, there wouldn't be much of a change since the soldiers seemed to have no soul-forging cultivation. Even the prisoners were better as they had some level of soul-forging cultivation. Hence, even if he absorbed all these 2 million plus souls, he felt that he wouldn't have much of an impact since he learned that quality matters when absorbing and refining the souls. He perceived that even if he discarded all his inhibitions and threw away his caution to the wind and absorbed all these souls, he could tell that he would perhaps reach the peak level of infant soul stage, and not the next stage, the young soul stage. Davis then promptly left the northern gate slowly when no one dared to speak or probe around with their senses in fear of the so-called senior. After that, he swiftly returned to the prison and saw that there was no one present currently except the prisoners. He swiftly had an idea. He went into an isolated cell that hosted a living prisoner and entered it. Davis then used the death book to write the prisoner's name to make him his puppet. He then retrieved Casper's corpse, a dagger and a sword from the spatial ring, unbound it from himself and placed it on the corpse. He then gave the sword and the dagger to the prisoner. The prisoner stabbed the sword at the heart of Casper's corpse. The sword plunged right into the chest, piercing into Casper's heart. Davis then took a deep breath. He clenched his fists, made his soul blindly fluctuate 2,000 meters to his surroundings, and made himself faint beside the corpse. This caused a slight amount of damage to his soul, but was quite negligible in the long run as he could heal it. The prisoner who saw that bit his own fingers and drew on the wall of the cell with his blood. He then stabbed himself in the heart using the assassin's dagger. Hendrickson, who was wildly escaping with Clara and Bowen in the southern direction, immediately noticed the soul fluctuation. "It's coming from the direction of the prison," both exclaimed simultaneously. Hendrickson looked at Clara and gritted his teeth. He then gave Bowen a transmission crystal and ordered, Bowen, immediately check what's happening in the prison. Bowen accepted and quickly went to check inside the prison, only to find Davis fainted beside the assassin's corpse and a prisoner's corpse. Bowen instantly went aghast but then saw some words written on the wall that looked like a dying message. I hope that with this, the Lord Empire will forgive my sins. Bowen belatedly understood and checked that the prince was still alive and only fainted. He promptly reported it to Hendrickson, who then relayed it to Logan. Emperor. We've found the prince fainted in the Imperial prison along with 2 corpses. One seems to be a prisoner while the other seems to be an assassin. What? Hearing that, Logan was so ecstatic that he couldn't believe his ears. After all, he thought that Davis was abducted. Yes. What I've said is true. I am at the southern gate of the Imperial capital with Clara. Bowen made his way to secure Davis and escape. No need. We won the war. Return to the Imperial castle as quickly as possible with Bowen and Davis. Logan commanded excitedly. What? Did we truly triumph this war? Hendrickson couldn't believe his ears. He remembered that the situation was in despair. How could it possibly change? But there was no way the Emperor would lie to him, especially when the safety of Clara Lowert, the first princess, depended on him. Yes. Hendrickson immediately changed his course and headed back to the Imperial castle while informing Bowen to return to the Imperial castle with Davis hurriedly. He trusted the Emperor's words, so he tried to return as soon as possible. Logan hastily returned to Claire, who was still trying to get away from their encirclement while launching flaming attacks at them. However, due to pregnancy, her attacks were so weak that it was unable to harm the family heads of the noble families and the others. They just passively defended, trying to quell the Empress's anger with words. When Logan saw her, he immediately sent a soul transmission to her. Claire. Davis is safe. Claire, who stopped attacking upon sensing Logan's return, became ecstatic but also despaired that she lost Davis. Her heart sank, but when she heard Logan's words, she had an angry yet confused expression on her face that remained lit with hope. What? You're lying. How? She cried and believed that Logan was lying, just to make her calm down. Really? Hendrickson and Bowen managed to find Davis fainted inside the Imperial prison. Let's go back to the Imperial castle and meet them. Logan excitedly explained. Claire became stunned, a misunderstanding. She then became so ecstatic that she immediately left in the direction of the Imperial castle before Logan could even catch up with her. Claire reached the Imperial castle, and just when she entered, she immediately saw the unconscious Davis, who was being carried by Bowen. Davis. Claire immediately took Davis from Bowen and wrapped Davis in her arms as she hugged him tightly, shedding tears of joy. Logan also arrived and finally let out a contentful smile when he saw the spectacle. He then heavily heaved a sigh of relief as he thought of successfully avoiding the worst possible outcome after that mysterious senior had saved them. A month passed from the time the invasion ended. Davis managed to explain that he and a prisoner teamed up to kill the assassin. He explained it in a way that implied that he knew the prisoner and somehow befriended him before the assassination attempt. He said that the assassin and the prisoner managed to stab each other when he attacked the assassin's soul, which made the assassin an easier target. Although his parents had their suspicions about the whole scenario, they did not cast much suspicion on him, and neither did they even doubt if he was the one behind the massacre of the 2 million plus soldiers. Not even one person connected the Weil massacre to Davis, and neither did they have enough evidence to link that Davis and that mysterious senior was one and the same person. After all, the massacre of 2 million people occurring in their sight, without even making much of a sound other than that single amplified heartbeat, was only a feat only capable of powers unknown to them. They were even thankful for this miraculous event, and wouldn't dare to doubt the authenticity one bit. That is the effect that one could achieve with absolute power. Davis hadn't managed to kill those 2 emperors because he guessed that their soul-forging cultivation was way more powerful than him. He didn't want to fail, only to be backtraced. Hence, he made sure to kill the 2 million plus soldiers at the same time to create a deterrent effect. And just as he thought, the two emperors turned tail and fled without much of surprise. The lowered empire gradually managed to gain peace, while the Raven Empire and Traitor Empire were caught up in the flames of war, temporarily invaded by the other empires. Logan managed to establish his authority once again, so no one would dare to test his authority anymore, not even the two Sky-grade sect leaders who were in the lowered empire. Claire felt eternally grateful to the mysterious senior, who had managed to make them cross this calamity. This was even more so when she realized that she would soon give birth to a child, and was expectantly looking forward to it. Rumors spread about the extremely powerful and mysterious senior throughout the Grand Sea continent. They even dared to make claims whether if the mysterious senior was an immortal existence, which the people strived to reach for in their entire lives. At that point, no one was sure if that person was related to the lowered empire or not by any chance, and no one dared to test it either. All the surrounding empires personally announced that they would soon visit lowered empire, except the Raven Empire and Traitor Empire. After all, they were more than convinced that they would face their deaths after arriving at the lowered empire. Davis wandered into the study as he sighed a lot these days. He had a lot to think about the massacre he performed that day. He only killed a single life before, so he was feeling down for a whole month, but eventually came out of it. He eventually understood that he would have to kill a lot of people in this world to climb up the hierarchy ladder to protect himself and the people he cared about. Seriously. This world is the same **thol as Earth. The only thing different was that I have lived in peaceful times after escaping from Mo Wuming. There's no use of thinking. I would have to kill a lot of people, or let them kill me. This world follows the rule of the survival of the fittest, more than any other world. After the war, he learned many things. The casualties in the army of his empire were so high that his kill count was higher than the people he killed during the last battle. Originally, the lowered empire upheld its peace with its big and powerful army as well as its experts, but after the rebellion begetting division among the army, it couldn't keep up with the command to battle against the two empires, so about more than 60% of them had died before the final battle began. Even some common people, numbering to 1 million, had been slaughtered in the war even though they didn't resist, and combined with this fact, it was proved that the lowered empire's casualties were higher than the enemy's side. This was such a huge blow to the empire's morale. Even though morals exist, people would have to uphold it, but in the world of the strong, only fists speak. People would kill at the slightest dissatisfaction, scheme when they dislike, backstab at the sight of a little opportunity. He finally acknowledged that people's lives were of no value to the powerful and depraved. Being showered in the love of his parents, he almost forgot what kind of a world he was living in because the walls of the imperial castle was so secure and peaceful, that he found himself enjoying his life while being on experimenting over his newfound powers born from cultivation. However, he finally got out of this mindset. After all, the war and his visit to the imperial prison taught him more about the cruel side of this world. Being able to kill more than 1 million people in a heartbeat. Leaving the guilt that he would experience despite the fact that they were the ones who invaded his lowered empire, the sheer emotions of possessing such power was enough to make him enter the path of depravity. I swear I won't misuse my powers. At least, I definitely won't harm the innocents unless I absolutely need to. Davis affirmed to himself not to fall into the path of depravity. Davis didn't like to resort to this kind of massacre. If he could have, he would have killed the two emperors instead, and that would have sent the army running with its tail caught between its legs. Nevertheless, in the future, he knew that he would have to resort to this kind of drastic measure to protect himself and the people he loved. Davis lost himself in his thoughts, staring at the ceiling as he contemplated. Davis, you should get ready. Grand characters from other empires should be arriving at any moment now. Logan came inside his room at that moment. He was clothed in a luxurious blue imperial robe, decorated with golden dragon patterns. Yes, I'll be ready in a minute. Today is the day where people from other empires would visit the imperial castle. Logan wasn't arrogant as he knew for what they were visiting for. In reality, everyone knew they were paying respects to the rumored mysterious senior behind the lowered empire. Although they weren't sure that if the mysterious senior was present, merely making good relations with the lowered empire was advantageous to them as well. Davis readied himself as he wore a blue imperial robe of his small size, adorned with blue crystals on his shoulders that glowed like a sapphire gem. Davis nodded, and they both headed to the throne hall. They reached the throne hall and sat on their seats. Logan was seated on the throne while Davis sat beside him on a small seat. The Empress's seat was empty as Claire was nowhere to be seen. Claire chose to stay in her quarters since she was 7 months pregnant. Clearly, there was no need for her to attend. Clara was with Claire, although it was unknown whether she was sleeping peacefully with an adorable face or playing with all her strength. Davis, let me give you a heads up. Other than those 2 empires who invaded us, there are 5 more empires in this continent. Logan explained, afraid that Davis didn't know who and all were visiting. I know, Father. I've seen the continental map before, and my geography tutor had rather made me learn almost all the important locations. Davis grinned. Oh? Good, then explain what the other 4 empires are in our Grand Sea continent. Logan tested him. Yes, MHM. Although there are many low-grade self-proclaimed empires between all 7 of us in this Grand Sea continent, I'll not mention them. From our position, the Ruth Empire is on the south, while the Ashton Empire is at the northwest. West of us is the Ross Empire, and in the east is the Claymore Empire. Davis explained. Yes, you are right. The Ruth Empire's royalty has the dragon bloodline. Legend has it that a flood dragon had been buried there a long time ago, and it has formed as an inheritance for the imperialty of that empire. Logan continued. The Ashton Empire is adept at destruction as they use fire-attributed cultivation techniques. The Ross Empire uses water-attributed cultivation techniques. And for that sole reason, they are at each other's throats whenever they have the chance. Logan smiled. He let out a chuckle as he continued, the Claymore Empire uses swords as their main weapons, but they are not picky with the type of cultivation manuals. They are highly skilled at using swords and rumored to have even reached the realm of so-called sword intent. Suddenly, Logan's face changed to a baleful expression. The Raven Empire has the bloodline of the Dark Raven, and it is rumored to be equal in power to the Flood Dragon. It is in the north and is currently warring with the Ashton Empire to defend their territory. His face had changed to a gleeful expression as he said that. The Trita Empire specializes in dark-attributed cultivation techniques. In other words, they train in wicked and despicable cultivation methods. They have all kinds of cultivation techniques that lean on the dark side. One that absorbs blood from others, ones that plunder essence energy from others, ones that even supplement yang by plundering yin and vice versa. They are in the northeast. They are also currently in war with the Claymore Empire. Serves both of those bastards right. Anger surfaced on his face at the mention of those 2 wretched characters. I will have my revenge. Raven Emperor and Trita Emperor, you bastards, just wait for it. Logan's eyes were full of hatred. Don't worry, Father. You will have your revenge soon. I know it. Davis smiled comfortingly, but hidden behind his smile was also a deep hatred. Enmity had been formed, and his first 2 targets were already decided. Emperor Raven and Emperor Trita, 2 5th-stage powerhouses right off the bat. I know, Davis. Logan smiled while forcing a smile, but at the same time, he felt heartened that all of them were safe in the end. Father won't forget the most important thing. I might be a failure of an emperor, but I'll protect you guys at the cost of my life. Logan stated with a determined expression on his face. Davis's lips widened in glee as he was content that his father thought this way. He didn't want a father who was spouting all emperor nonsense in any way. A few minutes passed before a guard announced the arrival of the various personnel from the other empires, one by one. The first to show up was the Ruth Empire, followed by the Ashton Empire, Ross Empire, and finally the Claymore Empire. Logan lifted his brows but was not surprised. The ones who showed up were the emperors of each empire, not the envoys. They gave respect to the rumored senior behind the empire, not him, the current emperor of the lowered empire. He thought that they would send some envoys, but it looked like they actually came as they said they would. They greeted each other and sat in their designated seats respectively. A banquet was set up way before they arrived at the venue. Each of them enjoyed a variety of exceptional delicacies consisting of peak-level Sky Beast stage magical beasts. Sky Beast stage magical beasts were equal to the third stage of the human cultivation. Emperor Lauret, this blazing tiger meat is delicious and nourishing as well. This should have cost severely, are you sure it's not going to diminish your empire's treasury? Emperor Alex Claymore curiously questioned. His face looked sharp while his eyes emitted sword-like intent that was capable of killing with a single look. He looked fit with his body draped with a tight-fit luxurious sword-patterned robe. Alex Claymore couldn't fathom how they were still rich even after facing two major calamities, and almost thought that it was due to that mysterious senior. Damn, his looks can kill, literally. Is that the formless sword intent? Davis's thoughts were swirling around his mind. One look at Emperor Claymore, and that left his mind feeling dizzy inadvertently. He kept an innocent face while looking left and right, gauging the so-called grand characters of the Grand Sea continent. Haha, how can I hold back when I heard that the emperors were going to personally visit my empire? Naturally, if I can do this, then it is within my means. Logan grinned as he responded, his expression on the epitome of I can do it all attitude. Haha, the lowered empire sure is rich. Emperor Van Ross laughed. His face looked amiable, and his eyes were ocean blue, different from Emperor Lauret's sapphire-colored eyes. He looked a little fat, but that doesn't warrant others to look down on him as he was strong. He wore a lavish deep blue imperial robe with beautiful droplet patterns. Looks can be quite deceiving. Davis conceived as he gained a vague sense of unease while looking at him. Long years of peace must have filled their pockets immeasurably, maybe the lowered empire is even rich compared to the four of us combined. Emperor Louis Ashton smirked as he laughed. His face looked handsomely evil, and he wore dark red imperial robes with azure flame patterns. Davis looked at him but didn't feel a sense of unease like Ross Emperor. Heavens, this guy looks so sinister, yet nice. He couldn't help but think, a little bit confused about his temperament. Davis was the observing type. He used his own methods to judge a person's character, and it was 90% correct most of the time. Haha, surely you jest, Emperor Ashton. Logan shook his head as he laughed. Now, there is no use probing, hence, let's enjoy the banquet a little more, gentlemen. Empress Isabella Ruth commented with a beautiful smile on her face. She looked like a beauty who could deeply quench a man's desire. She looked mesmerizing with her laid-back personality and waist-long purple hair with puff and wavy bangs. She had a fairy-like skin tone, her body ample with assets that would make a man drool. She wore an azure royal robe that accentuated her beauty tenfold. Davis gulped silently, his gaze attracted by her curves, perfect. Fortunately, no one looked at him, so he measured them as much as he liked. Yes, yes. All three emperors simultaneously echoed as they laughed. Even Logan shook his head secretly. Her beauty was able to mesmerize everybody in this hall so much that they glanced at her from the corner of their eyes, and didn't dare to connect gaze with her for even a short time. All the other three emperors were more than 200 years old. Everybody would think that she was a woman who lived for more than 100 years, but the truth was that her age was even lower than that of Logan. Nobody in this hall dared to underestimate this woman. Rumors had it that she was a power-hungry woman, who had chanced upon an incredible lucky chance, and had managed to secure the throne of her empire. So, Emperor Lauret, you know what we all are here for, and since none of us is going to be straightforward about it, I might as well begin. Empress Isabella Ruth sighed with a flutter of her eyebrows, her movements no longer laid back. She hesitated for a moment but gritted her teeth in apprehension and asked away, the question is, does the rumored senior even exist? There was a moment of silence in the hall. Everybody was tensed except Davis, even acting as if he didn't know what these people were talking about. Haha, Empress Ruth, the senior truly does exist, but the point is, that grand person doesn't want to speak to me either. Logan smiled confidently and Boolsh ** Ted. Everyone gasped in confusion but also relief. Can we possibly meet this senior? Emperor Ross timidly asked, albeit almost everyone knew that it was an act. How is it possible? Senior would be very busy and probably wouldn't want to meet us, lowly emperors, in the first place. If Senior doesn't want to meet us, then we can't possibly force him either. Logan answered calmly as he shook his head. Then do you know the place where Senior is currently in seclusion? Emperor Ashton asked. Who knows? I have no idea. Logan grinned, his hands spread wide. He made it look like he knew the place but wouldn't tell them even if they begged. Davis imperceptibly grinned as he inwardly praised his father. Damn, father, you sure are good at Boolsh * ting. The discussion about the mysterious senior went on for about 5 more minutes. Seeing that the conversation isn't going anywhere, Emperor Ross decided to change the topic as he sighed. Ah, leave it. I've already come this far, might as well make good relations with you, Emperor Lowrit. He snapped his fingers and then presented a small treasure chest to Logan. It's my pleasure, Emperor Ross. Logan nodded and accepted the gift graciously. He opened it and was astonished to see an orange square-shaped fruit in it. He instantly identified it as the mystic tyrant fruit. Excellent. This could help Davis attain the tyrant physique. Logan became truly pleased but also secretly laughed. The mystic tyrant fruit is a low-level sky-grade treasure, an ingredient that is used in making pills, and it has the effects to greatly strengthen the body. However, no one other than the higher-ups of the lowered empire knew that the mystic tyrant fruit aided in realizing the tyrant physique. The tyrant body secrets manual solely belonged to the lowered empire, hence, Emperor Ross could have said to make a loss, no, an extreme loss, since he literally helped a prince of another empire grow extremely stronger. I'm glad to see that you are content about it, Emperor Lowrit. Emperor Ross chuckled. After that, Emperor Claymore and Empress Ruth gave their gifts, but they were lower in quality to the mystic tyrant fruit. From this, it would be seen that the Ross Empire was at least sincere in their motive to make friends with the lowered empire. But who could deem that it was in good faith? Ho ho. What's wrong, Emperor Ashton? Why are you still not presenting your gift? Don't tell me you forgot to bring one. Emperor Ross sneered as he made fun of his nemesis. Emperor Ashton narrowed his eyes in displeasure. One could tell that Emperor Ross was spot on. Emperor Ashton was a selfish person. He didn't think that Emperor Ross would give out a valuable gift. He didn't want to offer a valuable gift either, nor could he afford to lose in front of his fated enemy. He suddenly remembered about a matter that he was worried about recently and smiled at Logan. Emperor Logan, we all know that you only have one wife. Isn't that right? Emperor Ashton smiled with a devilish countenance. I don't like where this conversation is heading. Logan suddenly had a bad feeling about this. Everyone knows that I love her deeply. Even so, Logan nodded. There was nothing to hide, half of the whole lowered empire knew of his deep love for Claire anyway, and he wasn't ashamed of being smitten with a single woman either. Wonderful. It is wonderful to see you love your empress deeply, but as an emperor, you have your duty to fulfill, Emperor Lowrit. How about you take my 36th daughter, Shirley Ashton, as your royal consort? Her talent is no less than yours, in fact, she can even be said to be the gem of my empire. Emperor Ashton boasted proudly. This? Logan had a difficult expression on his face. This offer tempted him, but he knew the consequences of accepting this offer both internally and externally. What? If it's the age, she is only 16 years old, the perfect age to get married. If you don't like that, you can wait for a few years to take her as your consort. Emperor Ashton looked as if he was determined to beat his rival, and possibly wouldn't back out after coming this far. But before all that, if he could marry his daughter to a promising and influential character and form relations with another empire, it couldn't get any better, or so he thought with a shrewd glint in his eyes. Besides, his prized daughter would also soar along with the lowered empire's growth. In his mind, this wasn't a bad proposition. Your offer is tempting, Emperor Ashton, but I would have to gracefully decline your offer, or else I wouldn't even know how I died. Logan shook his head with a sorrowful expression on his face. Huh? Hee, I see Emperor Lorette is either henpecked or blackmailed. How about this? I wouldn't mind marrying her to Crown Prince Davis, and he can take her as his first wife after he turns 16. Emperor Ashton hesitated as he compromised and reluctantly said, as if this was an okayish proposition to settle on. After all, Prince Davis would be the next in line to the throne of the Lorette Empire. This can be accepted. Logan nodded as he also wanted to ally with a reliable empire. The Ross Empire separated Lorette Empire and Ashton Empire on the land, so they never had any or many conflicts in the first place. Perfect. Davis made a sound of incomprehension. The change of proposition was so quick that he couldn't fathom what had happened. He was just enjoying the show, seeing his father placed in an awkward position was fun, and then out of nowhere, he suddenly got engaged for no reason. Hee, looks like the little prince is pretty happy. Don't worry, Crown Prince Davis. I will surely protect your bride from harm's way until you grow up. Emperor Ashton proudly declared. Davis nodded his head, absent-mindedly. His thought process couldn't catch up to the conversation that is taking place right now. After a few seconds, he came out of his reverie as realization dawned upon him. Bastard. He set me up. Davis fumed. His father didn't even get his permission yet. It was one thing if he were truly a 6-year-old child, but he was not. How could he possibly accept this? He stayed silent, knowing that he shouldn't use soul transmission. He couldn't possibly lash out and start throwing a tantrum, could he? That would be too embarrassing, and they would also doubt his age since a kid shouldn't know about adult matters. The discussion went on for a few hours as they changed the topic to the happenings on the Grand Sea continent. All right then, we'll take our leave. If an opportunity presents itself, we shall meet again. Emperor Claymore stood up and bid farewell. Hope my gift truly satisfied you. Then I'll also take my leave. Emperor Ross left swiftly. I would relay the matter about my daughter's engagement, so there's no need to worry if she will back out of this, as I would take care of it. Emperor Ashton comforted Logan and left. Empress Ruth, who was about to leave, stood up, but she furrowed brows and shot her gaze near the throne and noticed the little prince's gaze on her. She produced a smile and elegantly walked towards him. Davis turned nervous instantly. He could see her peaks sway a little, and when she arrived in front of him, she bent down and pinched his cheeks. He froze, his eyes hadn't moved away from her cleavage. What a cute child. Empress Ruth could see that Davis was intently gazing at her peaks. She smirked and didn't take it to heart, as he was only around 6 years old. She thought it was his curiosity, which led him to view her proud assets. A naughty one at that. She reflected to herself as she could feel that he was gazing at her most of the time during the discussion. Her physical sense had allowed her to sense all of the men's gaze on her. Then, I will also bid farewell, Emperor Lorette. With her back visible to their sight, she left as she flew away. Davis remained frozen. She was too beautiful, and even her modest clothing couldn't hide her assets. Even though he had seen a lot in his previous life, he never had this much of a close contact before. He was a virgin through and would have been a wizard if he didn't transmigrate. He felt that it was exhilarating as his heart kept pounding. Finally, after a few seconds, he shook his head. I fucked up. He thought ruefully. For some reason, he was feeling disappointed that he didn't manage to leave a good impression on her. He found his father leaving the hall stealthily and ran to him quickly. Father. What is the meaning of this? Davis caught his sleeves and asked angrily. Logan smiled sheepishly and left without saying anything. Damn you! Davis shouted as he couldn't care less anymore. Laughter sounds echoed across the throne hall. Everyone in the royal castle knew that their relationship was amicable. Hence, they didn't think deeply about it. Equals. Davis headed to the Empress's quarters to complain to his mother. He indignantly walked with firm steps. He reached the Empress's quarters, entered it, and reached his mother's room. No one obstructed him on the way, so he was swiftly able to arrive. How dare he? I've had dreams of my ideal woman, but this alliance just sank my hopes down the drain. Davis wasn't ready to take this lying down, and he went there to address his grievance. Mother. That. Father, he. Ha ha ha. Davis, I just now heard about it. Claire giggled. Ah. He. How could he? He didn't even ask for my approval. How can he do this to me? Davis became annoyed and helpless. After all, he had his own plans for his future soulmate. Sorry, Davis, but your father has no choice but to sacrifice you in this kind of proposition, Claire said with a sad expression on her face. You possibly couldn't want your father to marry again, could you? Claire had her eyes moist when she looked at him. No, Mother. It's just the... Enough, Davis, you would do well to see through this marriage. Claire declared as she avoided his gaze. But Mother. I have no feelings for the other party. Davis wasn't giving up either. Feelings can be developed over time, Davis. This engagement is already set in motion. If you back out now, wouldn't the woman you're engaged to receive a severe backlash to her dignity? How could she marry again? Think about what she will feel. Davis became tongue-tied as he felt that he couldn't counter that and could only give up powerlessly. However, he felt that something was wrong. Don't worry, Davis. I won't bicker if you get more women to marry in the future. Davis became stunned. What? But, Mother. Aren't you against the idea of polygamy? Davis couldn't understand. Wouldn't she have allowed Logan to marry another woman then? No, it's not like that. It's just that I'm extremely selfish and won't hand over my husband to any other women. She declared with an unwavering expression face, but then just shrugged. Anyway, aren't you lucky? You're around 6 but have 2 wives already set in stone for you. 2. Davis's mouth hung agape. Oh, I thought that we should bring this matter up when you are 8 years old in the past, so nobody told you. You were already engaged to the Cullen family's young mistress even before you were born. What? But how? Davis felt that this isn't possible. How many things are there that he didn't know about himself or matters that related to himself? During the rebellion. We had to gather many allies as we can, and I couldn't possibly have Logan marry a woman from the Cullen family. So I can only reluctantly agree to engage you to their family's young mistress. Hearing her emphasize reluctantly, Davis had black lines appearing on his face. He now knew why he felt that something was wrong, and why his mother supported his father in this case, because he realized he was screwed over by both of them. Time progressed leisurely, and gradually, a year passed. Davis continued to cultivate in all 3 cultivation systems. He pushed himself overboard and was determined to work hard. After experiencing the bloodshed of war, he was once again made to realize that life and death can be determined in a single instant. Even he was able to end lives with the help of the death book in an instant, much less the powerful people who were possibly above the 5th stage with unknown yet powerful means. He heard from his father and mother that their continent was isolated, and it was difficult for people above the 5th stage to enter into their continent. So they speculated that seniors who had arrived during the war must have been way more powerful than experts above the 5th stage. If he hadn't heard that, then he would have still been complacent with his empire's power and position, although he knew that such a senior didn't exist. During this time, he reached peak-level bronze stage, peak-level meridian refinement stage, and mid-level infant soul stage. Davis made progress in body tempering cultivation system the most, reaching the peak level of second stage, and even felt slightly proud of it. To enter the second stage of body tempering cultivation, he swallowed numerous pills and tempered his flesh and further strengthened his meridians. The lowered imperial family had the required resources, and with his endurance, he successfully cultivated. As for soul-forging cultivation, he was a bit regretful that he didn't manage to absorb the souls of more than 2 million people he massacred. All of that went to waste. Otherwise, he thought that he would have possibly broken straight through the young soul stage. Of course, it was only in his imagination, and knew that it was not realizable at all. Due to the abnormality of the prison where numerous prisoners were dead, Davis temporarily avoided the prison, and made an improvement in soul-forging cultivation by himself, experiencing an increase in level. Even so, with this kind of cultivation base, he was only 7 years old and soon going to be 8 years old. This was an achievement that no one in this Grand Sea continent was able to achieve. Logan took charge as the Emperor seriously and cleared the capital of any insurgents and spies he could find. He executed all of them in public so people would have to think twice or thrice about being a spy again. Claire gave birth to another baby girl, the second princess, Diana Lowrit. Diana was born normally, and there were no mysteries concerning her, unlike Davis and Clara. She was thankful for that as well, pretty much content that she got a normal child. Clara was able to speak smoothly, considering her age, which was only 3. She picked up the habit of reading from her brother and quickly learned the language of the world. Then she started to read about matters relating to cultivation, as if she were a cultivation maniac. This became possible because she liked to mimic her brother. Davis was so astonished to see his little sister be like that, as he didn't think a 3-year-old baby would be able to grasp thoughts and concepts so quickly. If word spread, then everyone would think that she is a monster, but Davis still could not care about that, as he cared for her so much that it was reaching the levels of the term siskin. Brother. I don't want to play. I want to learn. A cute little girl shouted angrily, but no matter who saw her face, they would melt in sweetness. She is 94 centimeters tall. Her face remained chubby and extremely cute. Her purple eyes were like 2 glowing amethyst gems, and her neck-length blonde hair was silky smooth and wavy. Don't be like that, Clara. What is your age? You should be playing instead of studying. Davis shouted. Then what about you, brother? You're already way ahead of me. And you're only 7 years old. Her charming and adorable face puffed up in anger as she felt like her brother left her in the dust. She only recently learned about her brother's achievements in cultivation, so she no longer felt like playing anymore. HMPFH. You only say that because you want to play with me. Why are you using my age as an excuse? Not one time, not a single time, has he managed to win against her in an argument. She could always see through his lies, and was also extremely intelligent for her age. Maybe it was because of those eyes that she was quickly picking up anything and everything she was taught. Davis now felt like that there was no advantage in being reincarnated or transmigrated in front of other characters like her. Alright, you can learn but not cultivate. If you want to cultivate, you can only do it after you get permission from our father and mother. Davis sighed helplessly as the days where he would even forsake his cultivation to play with his little sister was over. But Davis was having none of it. He waited for her purple eyes to stop glowing. Clara's eyes would slightly glow from time to time, randomly indicating that her ability was active, and for now, she had no control over it. Fine. You don't want to play anymore. Then I won't talk to you anymore either. Humph. I'm going to see my sweet little sister Diana, who's way cuter than someone else. Davis gave a side glance and left. Huh? Dawn. Clara wanted to say it, but the words wouldn't come out. She held her hands in front of her chest and looked sad. No. Brother is already so strong, and if I am still like before, then I won't be able to be with him. Clara's thoughts were pure without blemish. She solely wished to follow her brother, as she heard tales about the world outside. As intelligent as she was, she realized that she was capable of complex thoughts for her age. She was only able to be herself when she was in front of her parents and her brother. She could feel the gaze of fear and doubt in other people's eyes when they looked at her even when she was behaving normally. Even her parents were kind of awkward when she showed her intelligence, but her brother accepted everything. Clara could tell this because of her eyes that could see through deceit and lies. She could even see that most people acted in front of her, and that was quite an uncomfortable experience for her. So she had a slightly cold character in front of her parents and others. Only in front of her brother would she be a bit playful and warm. Only her brother was true in front of her. She could tell that although he lied from time to time, there was only care in it, as he would immediately explain himself. Humph. Keep up the act, brother. Clara fumed with a flushed face and left. Although her eyes were not active, she would know if her brother lied or not just by her intuition. She even formed a habit of being capable of telling the truth apart from lies by using her intuition. Little did she know that she was little by little gaining control over her mystical transcendent truth eyes by practicing this habit. For months passed in the blink of an eye. During this time, Davis had managed to break through to the energy condensation stage, the second stage in essence gathering cultivation. Furthermore, he had started training in some battle techniques as well. He had eaten the mystic tyrant fruit and managed to attain the tyrant physique, making him invulnerable to people who were still in the bronze stage. He had to thank the foolish Emperor Ross for that, and thank his parents for giving this mystic tyrant fruit. His battle aura at least became 2 times stronger on consuming it. But he somewhat didn't feel happy about that, as he missed playing with Clara a little bit. He would go see her sometimes, but she would quickly send him back, making him return to study. He was feeling regret for playing that prank on her on that day, and thought that she had started to hate him, so he stopped bothering her for some time. He never had a little sister before, so he didn't know how he should treat her in this kind of situation. Other than that, today was a special day because it is his 8th birthday. He was feeling fidgety for some reason because he knew that today was the day he was going to get his personal maid. They brought her a month ago into the imperial castle, but he didn't get a single chance to meet her either, but knew that the castle maids likely trained her during this month. Apparently, the Lowert family assigns a maid to their princes after they reached 8 years old. He only knew this when he heard about the so-called custom assigned to the Lowert Empire's princes. In short, the so-called personal maids were none other than women who takes care of them in all ways. As an earthling who had no choice but to keep himself entertained with anime, novels, and stuff, he sure had a lot of fantasies about maids. But when he knew that he was truly going to experience that, he was not sure of what to feel of it anymore. He heard that she was bought from an auction, and her story was that she was an orphan abandoned on the streets, picked up by people who train personal servants. She was brought up in life only to serve the people who bought her, so it didn't actually matter if the customer was a degenerate or not. Was he feeling happy? Sad? Even he didn't know that. He couldn't help feel pity for their fates, but at the least, he got to break free from that prison of slavery and torture. Prince. There was a knock on the door, immediately followed by a young but a naive voice. Davis remained in the study, sitting on his bed. At that moment, he suddenly turned stiff for some reason. Feeling a little stupid, he calmed himself down before he answered. Come in. The door opened and a girl at the age of 8 appeared in his view. She appeared around 127 centimeters tall, around the same height as Davis. Her neck-length hair remained pure black without a single speck of dust, and she was dressed in a royal-made outfit that did not possess frills. She looked beautiful with her almond-shaped raven-black eyes. She nervously walked in and bowed in front of Davis. Master, from now on, I am your personal maid. You can ask me about anything and command me to do your bidding. She muttered softly and shouted, and the end. Ha, ha. Davis hollowly laughed. He forgot his nervousness after seeing her being this nervous. For starters, you could have told me your name. He replied. Sore. I deeply apologize, Master. I am called Elia. She stuttered, but it sounded adorable. Right, Miss Elia, could you please stop saying master? Call me Davis, at least when we are alone. Davis wryly smiled. He felt uncomfortable being placed on a high pedestal by someone his own age. Besides, he had other thoughts for this personal maid of his rather than letting her toil around him like a robot. He didn't want such people by his side. Since she was fated to him by the so-called customs, he had his own plan for her. Me. Miss Elia. Your lowly servant doesn't require that much of an honorific, Your Highness. She blushed as she stuttered. Davis glared at her in scrutiny. Prince Davis, she corrected herself. Davis sighed as he looked at her subservient attitude. Looks like I should get used to my status too. Once he thought of how the castle maids would have trained her, he realized that he could not change her mentality so soon. One step at a time. He sighed and said to himself. Elia looked a bit troubled, but she also looked as if she was going to try her best to please him. Davis smirked at her face and asked, all right, you said that I could order you around. Elia acknowledged with a nod, yes, Prince Davis. Davis moved his gaze elsewhere before casting his gaze on her again. Let's play a game then. A game? What kind of game? Elia blinked as her face became blank. It looked as if she didn't expect to receive this kind of command at all. I'll say something, and you'll have to repeat that fast enough. If you can keep up with me, then I'll reward you fairly. Elia possessed no expression on her face, but her body expression said that she was quite nervous. As you command. All right, let's start then. Davis glared at her again. She quickly grasped the meaning of his glare and responded. All right, let's start then. Davis nodded, excellent, you're very smart. Just like that, keep up with me. Excellent, you're very smart. Just like that, keep up with me. Easy, right? Davis became impressed with her. She was quick on the uptake. Now, let's play this seriously. Easy, right? Now, let's play this seriously. Elia grasped the game quickly and naively played with him like a child. She started to display a smile on her face, which at least told Davis that she wasn't broken like he was once. Their childish amusement went on for 5 minutes straight. By this time, Elia had a wide smile etched on her face. She forgot her status and competed with him to the best of her ability. Heavens! I wish these idiots would stop ordering me around. Heavens! I wish these idiots would stop ordering me around. She replied almost as fast as him. He could see that she was getting into it, and he secretly licked his lips in anticipation. They're nothing but idiots who are placed on a high pedestal, deserving to die. They're nothing but idiots who are placed on a high pedestal, deserving to die. Especially that Emperor Laureate, he is a fucking pig. Especially that Emperor Laureate, he is a fucking pig. Elia became really confused in that fast exchange, but chose to end the sentence with a doubt. Then she realized to her horror that the words she muttered were really blasphemous. She dropped to the ground with a blank expression on her face. You dare to say that my imperial father, Emperor Laureate, is a fucking pig? Davis asked with disbelief written all over his face. Elia tried to explain herself, but no words came out as her mouth moved. She had tears forming in her eyes before she finally gritted her teeth. No. But Your Highness, you were the one who asked me to repeat what you said. Her senses came back to her, and she remembered that the prince was the one who made her say this, so feeling wronged, she retorted back subconsciously. When did I ever say that? Look at this. He took out a crystal from his side. An imagery crystal. Elia recognized the crystal right away. It seemed like she had seen it before. Davis injected his energy into the crystal, and the crystal then projected numerous images flashing into thin air. It was playing like a video. Davis and Elia could be seen playing, and the audio could be heard as well. Just when Davis had said, "Okay, let's stop the game," she could also be seen to say the same sentence. After that, it was just her continuously speaking. The crystal was behind Davis, so only his back and her front could be seen. But, no, no way. Elia shook her head and cried in disbelief. She started to think that she had hallucinated midway during the game. I have to immediately report this to my imperial father. Davis scrambled to get out of the study. No. Prince Davis, please don't, please forgive this lowly servant. Elia cried out loud. She knew that she would lose her life if word of this gets out. Anything but that. I'll accept any punishments. Please punish this lowly one. She bit her lips and wasn't sure of her fate anymore. She even believed that her life was going to be miserable, starting from now. Will you listen to my words then? Davis looked hesitant as he asked. Of course, my prince. Elia replied as fast as she can, still tear-faced. Then call me Davis. Davis instantly replied with a smile on his face. Prince. Elia became dumbfounded at this point, because she thought that she would receive some humiliating punishment from her master, but contrary to her expectations, she heard something else altogether. All right, I'm going to report. Davis left towards the exit. Davis. In a moment of haste, she shouted his name loudly and blanked out. Plop. The next moment, she fainted after realizing what she had done. Davis chuckled and shook his head wryly. In reality, he only moved his lips and sent her a soul transmission during the end of the game. So it seemed like he was still talking, but he wasn't. Poor Elia, who had just experienced soul transmission for the first time, couldn't differentiate between the two communication methods while she was so absorbed in the game. A solid step indeed. Davis's face revealed the smile of a devil. The next day, Davis finally got approval from his parents Claire and Logan to roam the royal capital, but they agreed only on one condition. That is, he must be accompanied by the imperial guards at all times, at least close by. His maid was accompanying him as well. Renard Nolan and 2 imperial guards who were at the 3rd stage were assigned to him. The 2 other guards were basically at the iron stage and revolving core stage in body tempering cultivation and essence gathering cultivation, respectively. Only Renard Nolan was at the peak level iron stage, low-level body transformation stage, and mid-level nascent soul stage. Iron stage is the 3rd stage in body tempering cultivation, while the body transformation stage is the 4th stage in the essence gathering cultivation system. Davis became excited to have the chance to roam around the imperial capital. He felt like a child who was going to experience a field trip. Of course, he didn't know what that feeling was since he didn't get to experience one in his previous life in the first place. Davis, Elia, and the royal guards had just exited the royal castle. He was still wearing the royal outfit while Elia was in her royal maid outfit, and the imperial guards wore shiny red armor. They went inside a carriage that reeked of the word royalty. It had royal blue patterned insignia all over its body, indicating that it was from the imperial Lowert family. After being seated, the carriage took off. Then without much surprise, they were all silent. Davis felt like he had to say something since he felt the atmosphere was rather stern. I've waited for this so long, Renard. Yes, Your Highness. I've heard that Your Highness been cooped up all year in the imperial castle. That was pretty sad, Davis replied sadly, and suddenly he remembered. Oh yeah, I've never got to thank you for rescuing me from that place. Thank you, Mr. Renard. No need to thank me, Your Highness. It was my duty, after all. Renard responded with an indifferent expression on his face. Hee. Don't be so stiff. I want to make friends too. Davis smiled a bit. Friends? But my status doesn't allow. If I say I want to make friends, then I want to make friends. You got something to say about it? Davis shot a glare, using his identity as a child to throw a tantrum. Elia and the others blinked. Elia couldn't fathom what was going on in this prince's mind. He was drastically different than what she imagined. Your Highness, you can't be like this. You have your position and status as a crown prince. Please don't make it difficult for us. Renard wryly smiled. If word gets out that he made friends with the crown prince, then he would be suspected of taking advantage of the prince's kindness. To him, it was no different than being framed. All right. Davis then realized that his kindness could also be fatal to others sometimes. Since the other party lacked the courage, he no longer cared about and looked outside the carriage. The scenery was beautiful, with large buildings built in many different styles. On one side, he could see an old Japanese-style residence, and on the other side, he could see an old Chinese-style manor. Seeing that, Davis remained shocked. What is this? Why are the buildings a mixture of so many cultures? Cultures? Oh. Does the prince mean the architecture of the building? There are many types of architectures available from the ancient era. This is the New Age era, so we don't differentiate between cultures anymore. We just take them as a type of architecture. Renard Nolan explained. New Age era. I've read about it. It looks like the ancient era had many people from Earth visiting this world. It looks like I'm not the only one. Davis mused. Legend had it that the Skyward Emperor sacrificed his life to bring the end of the ancient era. It was rumored that he was a man with great ambition. He managed to use his powers to grant a new language to all the living beings in the universe. It is said that led to people and magical beasts communicating much better with each other and the creation of a new era, the New Age era, but no one knows the authenticity of it. Oh, now I know why it is being called the Skyward language or the language of the world, Elia commented in response, but quickly placed her hands on her mouth, feeling that she had interrupted out of place. But contrary to her thoughts, no one came to bully or place her down. Davis kept looking at the window. He could see people walking to and fro, sometimes staring at the carriage with awe. He could see the capital city guards in every street they drove to, and he could see that they were at least at the second stage in either the body cultivation system or the essence gathering system. So they can be all commanded by me. Davis felt a sense of surrealism. Being cooped up in the imperial castle all day long, everyone listened to him, but they didn't nod to all his demands as there were many restrictions on him, with the main being that he was not allowed to go out. Hence, he never felt that he was a prince in a sense. But now, it wasn't the case anymore. He could tell them to die, and they would die. If not, the opportunistic others would force them to die. Just as the carriage was passing by, he saw a building that was 4 stories tall. There was a big banner-like board in front of the building that displayed called an emporium. Stop the carriage. Davis suddenly uttered. What is it, Your Highness? Renard asked with a doubtful gaze. I want to visit that emporium, stand guard here. Davis pointed with his finger. As you command, Your Highness. If there are any emergencies, immediately contact me. Renard Nolan handed him a crystal. I understand. Davis took the crystal and placed it in his spatial ring. Yesterday, he got an Earth-grade spatial ring as his birthday present from his father. Needless to say, he can use it to store objects as long as it doesn't have any life in it. He had played with it for some time before he got bored with it. At that time, Elia was looking at him strangely, wondering what he was doing, but he didn't mind it and played to his heart's content. After all, it was a damn spatial ring that could store objects. Davis and Elia got out of the carriage. They walked and arrived in front of the Calden Emporium, while the Imperial Guards stood near the carriage with their backs straight, and their sharp spears pointed to the skies. A person immediately arrived from the Calden Emporium, at a hurried pace. He was dressed wealthily, his body decorated with all kinds of jewelry like gemstones. He had short green hair. He appeared a little fat, and ran with dragged steps. Please forgive me for arriving late to pick you up, Your Highness. It's fine, and I never said that I was going to visit this place beforehand. Davis wasn't surprised that this person knew his appearance because Calden family was one of the 2 surviving noble family, and this person was obviously someone from the Calden family. I thank Your Highness for your understanding. My name is George Calden, and I'm currently the manager of this emporium. Let's go inside, shall we, Your Highness? Despite Davis being a small child, the manager didn't dare to not give enough respect. After all, the next heir to the throne was none other than Davis, since there didn't seem to be second prince being born yet. In fact, this matter presented a headache to Logan in the imperial court, as they would sometimes advise him, the emperor, to work hard. But they didn't dare to ask him to take another woman as a concubine, because Logan had already made an example out of someone who tried to set him up. Davis nodded his head to the manager's statement, looking cool and calm. They then started walking inside the Calden Emporium. As he walked, he could see a lot of sellers with boards beside them in their respective stalls, and some even possessed a legit and luxurious shop that looked colorful. So, what is this place for exactly? Davis asked with a slight amount of curiosity etched in his face. Your Highness, this place is our Calden family's emporium. We sell various kinds of treasures here, and it also acts as a marketplace. A lot of vagabonds and merchants also come here to set up their shops here, since we also provide high security for their merchandise. Oh? You mean that I can also set up a shop here? Ho ho, Your Highness sure can joke. No, I'm serious. Davis lifted his brows. George Calden only hesitated for a moment. This, Your Highness can also set up a shop, but no one would dare to compete with you, leading to less income for us. Haha, Davis slightly laughed. You are straightforward. I like it. I'm relieved. George Calden smiled back. His lips were a bit greasy, perhaps from eating magical beast meat. They chatted for a few minutes as they walked. Just when they passed by the Calden pill store, Davis paused and looked at it. He was curious about pills. Oh, that is our pill store. We sell various pills of renowned quality in there, George Calden explained briefly with a casual glance. He unhurriedly walked into the store while looking around, taking a glance at the wares. A young lady came forward and greeted them gracefully. Hurry, the young prince is here. Get the young mistress here to greet the young prince. George hurriedly sent a soul transmission to her. What? The young lady was utterly dumbfounded as she shot a look at the little boy. Then she hurriedly nodded her head at the manager and returned inside, not daring to delay. The young lady was a staff member of the illustrious Calden pill store. She held her head high up, looking down on other people with ordinary standing. However, she dared not to pull her weight around the Prince of the Empire or the manager. Both were people who she couldn't afford to offend. She hurriedly ran and stood in front of a door. Young mistress, the young crown prince, is here, the manager has called you to go greet him. She anxiously shouted. After a moment of silence, a clear yet naive voice could be heard. You can go now. Our young mistress will be ready in a moment. Yes. The young lady quickly left, thinking that she had relayed and finished her task. Right now, she was more interested in looking at the young prince rather than to wait. Inside that room. Miss, the young prince is here, it seems. A young lady dressed in a maid outfit repeated. This clearly explained that she served under this so-called young mistress. The prince? Isn't he only 8 years old? What is he doing here, Maisie? Another young lady around 18 years old questioned with a surprised tone. She appeared 160 centimeters tall, her eyes sharp and inky as black. Her nose seemed to be small, with her lips upturned in a smile. Her lush green hair reached till her waist, while she had her side hair tied up in a bun behind her head. Her twin peaks were plentiful while her buttocks were perky. She wore a black cheongsam with red stripes over its edges, and this absolutely made her look quite mature for her age because her bosoms were almost swelling. Perhaps the young prince could no longer wait to meet his fiancée, hee. Maisie joked as she giggled. Haha, he is only 8 years old, surely he isn't here for me. The young lady said in a joking tone, and shook her head wryly, even if he was here for me, I am merely designated to be his concubine. My fate is sealed for all we know. Maybe Miss should just escape from this place and go somewhere else. Maisie understood her mistress's plight, so she couldn't help but support her. Go where, Maisie? If I escaped, then I would be a sinner of the Calden family. Let's go see him, but there would not be much to expect from an 8-year-old boy, nor would there be much harm. The young lady smiled a little before she regained her bearings. She stood up and left the room with Maisie. Equals. Look at this, Prince. These are all our topmost pills. This is a peak-level Earth Grade 3 Revolutions pill. It helps one break through the silver stage and the chances. George kept explaining all the top-tier pills they had in stock. Davis was listening to him patiently while taking in the newfound knowledge. Learning all of this, he suddenly had some interest in alchemy. How good would it be if I can make these by myself? Davis sighed. He became slightly determined to get a good teacher for his alchemy training. All this war and its after-effects had caused the lowered empire to be unstable. Without the rumored senior's fake presence, the lowered empire could have suffered another calamity. So with this situation over their head, Davis's parents didn't invite any outsiders over. Faint footsteps could be heard to his side. He turned his head to see a beautiful woman walk into the hall while being accompanied by a maid. The moment he set his eyes upon that lithe figure of hers, his eyes lit up in appreciation. She walked with an elegance that couldn't be found in any ordinary woman. Her eyes were a bit lazy yet beautiful as well as sexy in a mature sense. If there was a bulb over his head, it would have lit up bright by now. "Haha, Your Highness, let me introduce her, she is our family's young mistress, Evelyn Calden." George Calden laughed as he introduced. "What a beautiful name." Davis absent-mindedly commented while watching her advancing towards him. He couldn't take his eyes off her, as he became truly captivated by her charm. "Wait. What? Your family's young mistress?" Davis's eyes were wide open as he recognized the name. "Yes, she is your fiancé, Prince Davis." George Calden nodded proudly while taking in his reaction. "That woman is my fiancé." Davis looked at her again and lost his composure. He suddenly felt that his mother did an excellent job by tying him in a marriage with this woman. She was totally his type. Evelyn came forward and introduced herself as she bowed lightly. "A pleasant day to you, Your Highness. My name is Evelyn Calden." Davis gulped as even her voice sounded a little coquettish, capable of melting his sanity. "Fuck. Is she a succubus?" "A pleasant day to you too, Miss Evelyn." Davis clasped his hand and greeted her as well. He impulsively felt like he should leave a good impression on her, the same time as he felt with Empress Isabella. When compared, although Evelyn Calden lacked in terms of beauty, she possessed a charming expression as well as a voluptuous body. "I am heartened to see you, Prince Davis. By any chance, did you come here to visit me?" Evelyn directly probed, wanting to know why he came here. Davis contemplated a moment before answering. Forget about first impressions. If he lied, then he would have to make a river of lies again to follow up. Besides, he didn't want to live a life of a lie, especially with his wife-to-be in the future. "Ah. The truth is that I had no idea that you were here, Miss Evelyn. This is the first day I have been out of the Imperial Castle, and I was just roaming around in the royal carriage while I caught the sight of your Calden Emporium. I wished to check things out as I heard about the reputation of the Calden Emporium, so I came inside to sightsee. I honestly didn't expect to see Miss Evelyn in this place, as I thought that you would be likely in the Calden family mansion. It is pretty much my luck to see your beautiful self here." Davis, who looked like a teenage kid because of his body tempering cultivation hastening his growth, kept his bearings and answered truthfully while also trying to flirt with her. At this moment, he also inwardly cursed why he didn't have a grown body. However, the plain sight of him trying to compliment her was pretty comical to Evelyn. She giggled as a faint interest sprouted in her heart. "Evelyn, thanks Your Highness for this compliment." Evelyn felt curious about this person, and now somewhat had a good impression of him. If this was her fate, then she was determined to make a person like him care for her. If not, then she thought of backing out before it was too late. Presently, Davis was feeling not sure about canceling this engagement. The moment he laid his eyes on her, he was more or less mesmerized, and he absolutely realized that he had taken a liking to her. Even though his current feeling may not be love, but rather an attraction, he hoped that he could develop feelings with her. He sure did take a liking to her at first glance, but didn't want to force her either. Miss Evelyn, by any chance, are you against this engagement? If you are, then I can ask my imperial father, the Emperor, to cancel the engagement. This time, even Evelyn and the other people's eyes shot wide open. She very much wanted to decline this engagement when she first heard about it, but as a member of the family, she had little say in her marriage unless she showed a talent that a genius should possess. Age was of little concern in this world. In the Lowered Empire, after one turned 16, it didn't matter if he or she married a 200-year-old character. Davis was just 8 years old, but the marriage will only be held after he turned 16, and until then, she would have plenty of time to decide and even nurture some feelings. Actually, Evelyn already had thoughts about how this fiancé of hers would turn out to be from the time she learned about her engagement. After directly meeting him in person right now, she possessed a good impression of him. He did not appear to be arrogant, nor did he force her to do something humiliating to put her in her place. She heard that the prince was the only one in line to the throne of the Lowered Empire. Hence, it was common knowledge among people that his arrogance might have reached the heavens. There were even rumors that he would only talk with people by looking at the skies, directing his contempt for them. Now she could see that rumors were indeed rumors. There wasn't a hint of truth in it, or at least, in this case. Although she could sense his gaze that was intently viewing her, as if it were examining, she felt that it was only innocent. It was normal for a boy to be startled when seeing her. After all, she was aware that she possessed immense racks that gave her some headaches whenever she stepped out of her mansion. Nevertheless, she was now a little hesitant about whether to drop this engagement or not. On the other hand, it's not like she had a choice anyway. This prince shouldn't say it like this, the engagement has already been s. Davis glared at George Calden, and that shut him up from saying any more **t. As you know, I have again been engaged to the 36th princess of the Ashton Empire. This means that you are fated to be a concubine of mine even if you marry me. I know that you are indignant about this, and anyone would be. Hence, I want you to make a choice. Davis elaborated on his thoughts. He did so while looking innocent and scholarly, so that he didn't appear to be immensely out of character for an 8-year-old. Davis could see that his fiancée, young Mistress Evelyn Calden, didn't immediately answer, and was currently hesitating on her decision. Else, she might have openly said that she didn't like this engagement, or that she would willingly marry him. Looks like she is forced to. But I'm not opposed to this anymore, so it's not to anymore. Davis inwardly sighed. There is no need to decide so soon, Miss Evelyn. I can see some hesitation in your eyes, but the sooner you make your decision, the better it is for your reputation. Davis calmly said. Evelyn couldn't believe her ears. Did this little prince not take a liking to her, and decided to let the engagement conclude just like that? Or did he consider her feelings and said that? She couldn't guess which exactly was it, whether the former, latter, or else with another motive altogether. Then I bid you farewell, Miss Evelyn. Davis had no choice but to leave after creating this awkward atmosphere like a coward. He wanted to escape from further embarrassment as soon as possible, as he felt that he would slip up. Just because he had transmigrated wouldn't suddenly make it easier for him to pick up a woman with his words left and right, although his status would. As a man with no experience, he had no confidence in himself. Hence, for the first meeting, he felt a few words filled with his intentions were enough. Elia followed him closely while she eyed him with admiration. She didn't forget that experience she had with him yesterday. It turned her view of the world upside down. She could even get into grave trouble by playing a simple game with him. What else has the prince in store for me? She very much looked forward to it and followed him, like a curious cat. Elia clearly looked as if she wasn't the one to give up easily, but if this was her fate, to live as a maid till she dies, then she will her life to the fullest as a maid rather than try to break free from it. Well, at least she felt that it was better than to die early by betraying the imperial family. After the prince left, Evelyn had a complex feeling emerge in her heart. Interesting, she muttered with a wide smile on her face, her lips turning into a sensual curve. If Davis had seen that, then there was a chance that he would have probably kidnapped her to make her his first wife. But of course, she didn't do that on purpose, but it was her natural disposition. Young mistress, the prince is just a little kid for now. So what His Highness says will not affect the marriage in the future. Please give up any thoughts of backing out. George Calden stated warily and left. He felt that he had to report this to the Calden family head as quickly as possible. Such a matter couldn't just be left out like that. Miss, wasn't that your chance? Maisie muttered over Evelyn's ears. Evelyn stayed silent. She felt mildly confused and felt like she couldn't make a decision anymore. She didn't have any lovers or such people in her life. Since she was engaged to the prince when she was 10 years old, no one dared to woo her openly either. So she didn't have much experience interacting with the opposite gender other than her relatives. Davis was deep in thought after getting into the carriage. Still, what is this feeling? I feel like I just gave her amnesty, pardoned her from her fate with a single sentence of mine. Is this how people at the top of the power hierarchy feel? No wonder they are so hungry for more power and authority. Even I feel like I can get drunk on it. He shook his head, sighed. He felt that he had enough of his first day out in the imperial capital. The moment he met Evelyn, he became rather satisfied for the day. Or did I enter the Calden Emporium subconsciously feeling that I would meet my fiancé? Davis felt amused at this thought. In a moment, he ordered the carriage driver to return to the imperial castle. He talked with Renard Nolan for some time about the imperial capital's specialties and sceneries till they arrived at the imperial castle. After that, he straightaway walked into the study. After making himself comfortable on the bed, he thought about what he should do next in his free time, and decided to develop Elia's personality. After yesterday she was a little sensitive to him, and opened up a bit. He felt that perhaps now is a perfect moment to break her shell of enslavement since yesterday's effects were still present. So Elia, what do you think about Miss Evelyn? Davis asked in a casual tone. Me? Elia slightly widened her eyes and thought for a second. I think she is very beautiful, and is a perfect match with your highness. Elia shook her head and sighed in half-hearted admiration, truly a match made in heaven. Davis glared at her, speak your genuine thoughts. Elia's expression froze, looks like I was found out. She looks like an independent and proud woman despite her family circumstances, and I don't think that she will agree to be your concubine. Elia puffed and replied. That's what I thought too. Davis replied as he assessed Elia. It came as a slight shock to him that she even knew about this fiancé of his, or did she garner this much just by observing the two of them? He couldn't fathom. Perhaps, not only was she talented in cultivation as he heard, but she was also skilled in various departments such as observation. Suddenly, Davis stood, his face right in front of hers. Elia froze, realizing that their heads were too close. Davis looked into her eyes deeply. What? What is this? Is His Highness going to do it now? Ba-dump, ba-dump. Elia's heartbeat increased like a young maiden's. She could feel his deep gaze, and it felt like her heart was going to explode. She couldn't bear his gaze, so she closed her eyes and waited for it to end. As a maidservant and half a slave, she knew whose woman she was going to become. Hence, she more or less knew what her future would be like, but she didn't expect it to occur this soon. She waited and waited for what it felt like a long time, but nothing happened. She slowly opened her eyes only to see Davis seated on his bed, looking a little disappointed. Why is the prince disappointed? Was it because I didn't kiss him? Elia felt she had done something wrong. Elia. Davis's voice became tranquil. Why? Yes. Elia became truly nervous. Why didn't you push me away? Davis asked a question, but it sounded insanely stupid to her. Push. Elia's black pupils shook. How can I? There's no way I can do that. I am your maid, not your master. In other words, I am your slave. Feeling pent up from his bullying, Elia let out her angry emotions, thinking what did he even expect from his personal maid, in other words, his unofficial slave. Davis inwardly smiled. Fortunately, it was just as he expected. Elia didn't seem to be entirely enslaved, and have fear engraved into her. The fact that she could get angry and refute him, the sole prince of an empire, told him numerous things, like how she's still a child who can't control her emotions, and mainly, how she is still redeemable. Even if she had been imbued with wrong beliefs, he felt that he could still break it. There was a moment of silence before Davis broke it. He opened his mouth and calmly asked, "Did I buy you?" No, Elia thought and answered, still feeling angry. "Did I ever say that you were my slave?" Davis stood up again. Elia realized that the prince never did call her that. She became a little confused and moved her small lips. No. Did I ever say that you were my maid? Davis walked towards her. No. Thinking of it, she realized that he never even treated her like that. Then why are you degrading yourself? He again stood face to face towards her. She couldn't think coherently anymore as her thoughts went into disarray. Suddenly, she felt small arms envelop her body in an embrace. She didn't know why, but she felt warm and secure in that embrace. Become my friend. Davis suddenly demanded. Elia shuddered, feeling something enshrouding her heart. I can't. She muttered as her eyes became moist. You can call me Davis. No. Elia felt like something was stuck in her throat. She tried to get it out. She couldn't say, but something felt like breaking in her head. Call me Davis. Davis repeated as he said, he was not giving up after coming this far. A child was in front of him, seeking warmth. He did not have the heart to treat her as his slave. Elia felt a rush of complex emotions overwhelm as she screamed, Davis. It was as if she finally had her inferiority complex break. Davis smiled as he knew that his plan is working. He didn't realize it before, but going out and interacting with people outside, and rather made him aware of how lofty his status and name are in the lowered empire. Just calling his name alone is blasphemous to people of lower status, and if Elia, his personal maid, were to call him that, she would feel that she is a lofty person as well, increasing her self-esteem, at least in theory. He cheerfully echoed, not letting that feeling in her heart disappear again. Davis. Again. Davis. 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 Tears were flowing down Elia's eyes while she also finally possessed a smile on her face. Yes, why am I degrading myself when the person I serve doesn't even look at me like a servant? Am I looking down on myself? Have I truly given up? Have I lost something? No. I have a friend. You, Elia, have unofficially become my friend. Davis let go of her and happily said with a grin on his face while holding her shoulders. He didn't think that he would be able to change her mentality so soon. Hence, it became a pleasant surprise for him. She must be a very strong-minded girl. He thought. Besides that, he knew a person's mentality and personality would change extremely depending on the kind of experiences they go through, especially in their childhood and teenage years. So if he had a chance to change her personality and temperament, he felt that the earlier he did, the better. Elia bit her lips and nodded her head. At that moment, a thought sprouted in her head, which made her heart flutter. At this point, Davis didn't deeply realize that giving an inch can tempt people to take a yard. Elia? Davis's voice pulled her back from her thoughts, making her blush slightly. Now that we have become friends, it's fine to call me Davis whenever we are alone from now on, but for your safety, don't call me by my name in front of others. Things will take a turn for the worse for you if you say my name in front of someone else, but even if it came down to that, I would take care of that. Therefore, you don't have to worry too much about it. I got it. D. Davis. Avoiding his gaze, Elia shyly nodded her head, as her lush black hair fell by the side. So Elia, why didn't you push me back? I think you can answer me now. Davis grinned meaningfully. Elia's face went blank as she held her hands in front of her budding bosom and mumbled. That is, as a maid in training, we are made to learn about knightly services, so I was quite ready for it. By the time she finished, her face was so flushed that it looked like a crimson apple. Hearing that, Davis became dumbfounded. What? Did those bastards do something to you? I will surely get revenge for you. Davis fumed with anger. What are they doing with little girls? This is unquestionably a crime in his moral notebook. Ah, no. We are only made to learn from books, Anne. She hurriedly said, afraid that he might misunderstand, but went silent again. And what? Davis had a blank expression on his face. And we are made to learn from that crystal you took yesterday, and... What the hell? Pornography exists here too. No wonder she recognized what type of crystal it is. Davis became dumbfounded again. And? He gulped. We are then made to practice with vegetables. She shouted and ducked, holding her legs as she hid her face while she went silent in shame. Ha 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 ha. Davis laughed, quite literally rolling on the floor. He hadn't had a laugh like this in his whole life. He laughed so hard that a little drop of tear rolled out from his eyes. Hearing that laughter, Elia felt like that she could just die from shame. Stopping his laughter, Davis became silent and realized that he had awoken to the pleasures of bullying his new friend. Ah, this is gonna be so fun. All right, he lifted her shoulders and made her stand up. Elia, if you want to break out from this status you have, then you need strength. Strength is the basic form of power, and if you have it, no one will dare to look down upon you regardless of your status or your actions. He uttered seriously. Elia regained her composure and nodded her head. Inwardly, she wanted to meet his expectations. Davis uttered in a reliable tone, I'll teach you cultivation, so don't worry. It was said that teaching had the effects on comprehension where a teacher would be able to realize their own discrepancies in their comprehension, and that is why most male geniuses would gain disciples sooner, to verify their own comprehensions and grow. However, Davis didn't have such an attitude when he said that to Elia. Whether if it were fortune or misfortune, Elia became his personal maid, and he wanted to see to it that she is not a normal person whom he would not leave behind in the future. As a prince with self-awareness over what he's doing, he could have easily declined this so-called custom of the lowered empire if he remained adamant about it, but he didn't do so. Why? Perhaps he felt their meeting was fate, or coincidence, or felt like living the royal life. He didn't know. Maybe I became too bored with my current lifestyle, and needed something to make it interesting. Davis inwardly laughed as he tried to make sense of his actions. Thank you, Davis. Stop that, and there's no need for thanks between friends. Davis lightly shook his head. Look at that. You are already at the high-level meridian refinement stage. Elia became slightly proud. Hee, they said that I have some talent for cultivation. I heard that's why they sold me so expensively that only the imperial family could afford for a single slave like me. I don't know whether to be happy or sad about that fact, but I guess your talent is good, considering the stage you achieved at your age without many resources, Davis said while accurately trying to guess how high her talent was compared to others. However, talent could only be measured by the primitive form of checking a cultivator's age and cultivation before sticking a label onto them like genius and other names. He didn't have a scale to check Elia's talent accurately. Oh, but I am pretty happy about that fact. After all, I was able to meet you. Thinking like this, Elia smiled in her heart. Whatever, let's go meet my mother. I want to introduce you to her as well. Oh, if it's the Empress, I have already met Her Imperial Highness once. Her Imperial Highness only gave me a single purpose, and that was to take care of you well. Hearing that, Davis had a smile on his face, thinking that his mother still cared for him deeply. All right then, I guess there's no need to introduce you then. You stay here. I shall go to visit her. In the Empress's quarters. Uee. A child incessantly wailing could be heard, grating the ears of a woman. Now, don't cry, Diana, mother is here. Claire tried to placate Diana, but it was of no use. After a few minutes, she suddenly stopped crying and slept peacefully. Diana possessed two pure sapphire eyes like her father. She remained chubby and incredibly cute. Her black hair was short and wavy. If she grew up, it was of little doubt that she would come to look like her mother, combined with her father's eyes and hair. Davis knocked open the door and went inside his mother's room. Oh, Davis. Come here. If Diana hadn't stopped crying, I would have gone looking for you, Claire said with a rueful expression on her face. Hee, mother, today I saw Evelyn Calden. Davis smiled, his lips curving into a grin. Oh. What do you think about her? Claire's eyes shot up as she probed him. She is truly beautiful, and I think I've taken a liking towards her as well. Ha, Davis. Just like your father, you too easily fall for women with beauty. However, hearing that, she was finally able to relax. Davis shook his head but didn't deny. Who didn't favor a beauty? A crippled man perhaps, and a man with a broken or cold heart. Okay, there were many. However, Miss Evelyn could be in no way compared to his mother in terms of beauty. The two of them could be said to be worlds apart. However, in terms of figure, Miss Evelyn took the lead without even a need to compare. Or Davis should say that her figure perfectly fits into his type. I guess that this marriage is now pretty much set in stone. Claire nodded her head in satisfaction. After all, she was the one who fixed this engagement in the first place. If this marriage got nullified, her face would be thrown away by her own son, not that she cared much about something like face in the first place. Not so soon, mother. Davis swung his hand. Claire did not expect him to reject, so she cast him a bewildered glance. He explained the events that took place when he was in the Calden Emporium. And that's it, I don't think she likes the marriage arrangement, and if she doesn't like me, then just let her go. Davis spread his hands wide. But judging by the events, it looks like she isn't totally against the marriage as well. Claire deduced after hearing his story. Then we'll have to see how it goes. If she doesn't want to be with me by any chance, then we will cancel the marriage. Agreed? I can't decide that by myself, so you should ask your father. Claire had a difficult expression on her face. There it is, the legendary diversion technique he had heard about, used by almost all the parents in his previous world. Davis sighed. At least, you can't force her, okay? All right. Claire gave in as she shook her head. So what about your new personal maid, satisfied? Claire smilingly winked at him. Very satisfied. He winked back at her. Wonderful. Mother pulled some strings to get her for you. However, she was quite expensive for a maid. She pouted as she thought about it. Just for facts, how much did she actually cost? Davis let his curiosity get the better of him. Claire calmly stated as she lifted up a single finger, 1 purple coin. 100,000,000 copper coins. Davis had a dumbfounded expression on his face. So expensive. The currency in this world ranged from copper coins to purple coins, however not limited to it, as goods like treasures ranging from mortal grade to higher grades could also be accepted. 100 copper coins equated to a single silver coin. 100 silver coins equaled a single gold coin. 100 gold coins compared to a single platinum coin, while 100 platinum coins compared to a single purple coin. Purple coins are made from peak-level Earth-grade ores extracted from mines spread throughout the Grand Sea continent. However, every mine present that was found was more or less mined. Hence, only the currency was flowing in the Grand Sea continent, and purple coins became the top currency to exchange with currently. It was also written in the records in the Imperial Library that there was even a higher currency, but disappeared in the passage of time due to the exhaustion of resources. Davis secretly shook his head, feeling that he had corrupted an expensive maid with his way of thinking. "By the way, Mother, where is Clara cooped up?" Davis asked, feeling a little bit sad since he hadn't seen her for a long time. "Clara, huh?" Claire heavily sighed. "That child isn't the same as she used to be for some reason. She is avoiding us, her father and mother," she said dejectedly and continued. "What did I do wrong? Did I wrong her in any way? Your father is afraid to deal with her since it seems that she can think for herself naturally like an adult despite her young age. She only talks with you and won't talk much with us. I can also strangely feel that she maintains some distance from us." Claire bit her lips in frustration. "Honestly, you two are so much different than a normal child that we even hesitate to choose the choice of words while having a conversation. I know about you, Davis, but your little sister just won't open up to us, unlike you. All she does is give a short reply, or nod her head, and return to do her own work." "When did things get this serious?" Davis's eyes twitched. "Don't worry, Mother. This must probably be some kind of a misunderstanding on her part." Davis continued comfortingly, "Remember, Mother, even though she can process complex thoughts like an adult, she is still a child, both in body and soul, unlike me. It would take some time for her to understand her own feelings." He paused before grinning. "If she can't, then I will just have to make her realize like a good brother." Claire became heartened and quickly embraced him. "I knew I could count on you, Davis. You're the best. A dutiful son is indeed a reliable son." He. After spending some time with his mother, Davis returned to the study. He had nothing to do except cultivating, so he thought that he could use this chance to teach Elia about cultivation. "Elia, I said before that I would teach you cultivation." Davis walked up to her as he struck up a conversation. Elia nodded her head. It would be a lie if she said she wasn't interested in it. Davis wanted to know her current knowledge. "Before that, what do you know about cultivation so far?" I only know about meridian refinement stage. I haven't been taught any more than that." Elia shyly pursed her lips, feeling inferior again. "Then try explaining that to me," Davis said. Elia looked taken aback, but her eyes narrowed, and she gathered her thoughts before explaining. "Meridian refinement stage is where we refine our meridians by absorbing heaven and earth energy from the surrounding atmosphere. It is almost impossible to absorb without practicing an essence-gathering cultivation manual, which teaches us how to circulate the heaven and earth energy into the body and refine it in our dantian. The heaven and earth energy in the air is also impure, making it difficult for us to cultivate with that method. Hence, we have no choice but to rely on refined pills to quickly make it through this stage. Otherwise, we can only advance slowly by absorbing this impure heaven and earth energy. Later, we refine all the meridians in our body, opening almost all the meridian points and pathways until we can begin storing energy in our meridians for the next stage." "Right, you have a good grasp of the meridian refinement stage." Davis nodded his head in approval, as if he were an expert himself. He. Elia smiled innocently, genuinely delighted at being complimented by him. Davis then took over. "Let me explain to you about the next stage, energy condensation stage. As the name implies, we start gathering energy from the surrounding atmosphere and store it in our meridians as we circulate the energy before finally storing it in our dantian. This causes our meridians to undergo a qualitative change depending on the element or attribute of energy we absorb. In my case, it's the lightning energy. With my parents' help, I've refined my meridians to be more inclined towards the lightning attribute. Hence, it can be said that I'm suited more for cultivating lightning-attributed essence energy. Other than that, the pureness of the energy we refine and store in our meridian points, and Dantian depends on the essence-gathering cultivation manual we cultivate. The purer the essence energy is, the more powerful we will be, even adding on the fact that our meridian points become more powerful, capable of storing more energy when we break through the next level in that cultivation system. Elia seriously nodded her head. She could understand his simple explanation. She thought it was way easier to understand Davis's explanation than reading through books, which really liked to make cultivation mysterious enough that she couldn't understand one bit of it. After this, he explained its concepts to her for some time before moving on to the body cultivation system. Let's move on to the body cultivation system. It isn't anything difficult to understand and doesn't require much comprehension, but requires more resources than the other two cultivation systems. We just have to absorb the energy from those certain resources and circulate it into our body, meridians, bones, tendons, inner muscles, outer muscles, and organs, making our entire body stronger in the process. The names of the body cultivation system in the early stages are organized by the aura we emit after cultivating it. After we keep cultivating and strengthen our entire body continuously, the aura we emit changes in color, indicating that we have broken through the next stage. In the copper stage, we emit a reddish-brown aura that envelopes our body when we use the body cultivation technique. In this stage, only our flesh strengthens. In the bronze stage, we emit a refined brownish aura, and so on and so forth for the next stages. In this stage, the flesh and the meridians are strengthened. Also, it is rumored that the more you train your body, the more energy you can store in your meridians. However, since I haven't made much progress in essence-gathering cultivation when compared to my body-tempering cultivation, I fail to see the comparison. Elia kept nodding her head as he explained. After that, he emphasized how to efficiently circulate the energies from the absorbed resources into the body. He also explained about the dangers of cultivating in body-tempering cultivation system. One wrong move and the worst that could happen to you is you end up crippled or even dead. Elia gulped but also felt like she could now confidently cultivate with his help. Leaving at that, I guess I could explain soul-forging cultivation to you later. However, it is obvious that you are not ready for that. Okay. Elia obediently and adorably echoed. She was taking in all that information into her mind he said previously, so any more knowledge will become useless since she will undoubtedly get confused. Oh man. How do I explain soul-forging cultivation to her? It has the most mysterious and involves a lot of complex intricacies out of the three cultivation systems. Davis felt a headache. More than explanation, soul-forging cultivation concentrated more on the feeling, experiencing the resonance with heaven and earth energy. He knew that he was no teacher material, and he couldn't teach her what he didn't understand perfectly. In the Calden family manor at the royal capital. What? The little prince said that he would cancel the marriage between him and my daughter. Evan Calden, who was in his room, seated on a chair, suddenly went wide-eyed at the news as he stood up. His face looked as if it were about to explode. No, it's not like that, family head, a slightly fat man tried to explain. He was none other than George Calden, the Calden Emporium's manager, who came to report about the earlier event. Then what? The prince only told that young Mistress Evelyn has her choice to make, and that he won't force her to become his concubine. If she doesn't want to marry him, then he stated that he would cancel the marriage with the help of his imperial father, the emperor. George Calden tried to articulate his choice of words. Evan Calden coldly snorted, "Humph, the Lowert family won't go back on their word. We aided them to cross two disasters, the rebellion and also the war. The marriage will occur as promised. Even if they don't go back on their word, what if young Mistress Evelyn refuses? The prince will stop the marriage from happening with having a good reason on his part." Evan Calden possessed a stern expression on his face before he heaved a sigh. He couldn't help but lower his voice. Did my daughter say anything? Young mistress didn't say anything and also didn't back out from the marriage. Evan Calden couldn't believe his ears. He knew his daughter best, but he had no choice but to sacrifice her for the Calden family's prosperity. But he didn't think he was sacrificing his daughter, because he didn't know a more trustworthy family to marry his daughter other than the Lowert family. Marrying her to the Lowert family was the best proposition he could think of at the moment, as forming ties with the imperial family was also important. Otherwise, their noble family might meet with their end sooner than they should in the passage of time. It looked like young mistress was hesitating for some reason. This is also a piece of good news. George Calden widened his greasy lips as he smiled like a toad. Has she taken an interest in that little brat? No way. She was adamant about revoking this marriage arrangement when she was a child and remained like that even yesterday. What had happened? Even if you ask me. George Calden had a wry smile on his face. 1 whole year passed. Davis became 9 years old at this point. He grew up to 145 centimeters tall. His face began to more and more shape like his father, who undoubtedly looked like a lady killer. Combined with his mother's aspects, it is set in stone that he would indeed become popular among women in the future. Davis solely spent most of his time cultivating. He eventually reached mid-level iron stage, high-level infant soul stage, high-level energy condensation stage. He had entered the 3rd stage in body tempering cultivation, while just being 9 years old. This was rather a phenomenal achievement that would make any parent in the Grand Sea continent proud of, including his parents. During this year, he didn't get a chance to meet Evelyn, or rather one should say that he put that matter on the back of his head. He was still waiting for her reply, but none came even now. He also made Elia train in body tempering cultivation and essence gathering cultivation. He made her train in the same cultivation techniques he cultivated without caring for the opinion of others. Her talent was great as well, but not to the point of being a genius. He managed to pull some strings with some random excuses to get the resources for her cultivation. Of course, if his father and mother found about it, even he doesn't know what will happen, but he had the confidence to take care of it. Elia achieved peak-level copper body stage and peak-level meridian refinement stage during this time. Logan and Claire also worked hard and birthed a baby boy during this year. Davis was elated that he finally got a little brother and a scapegoat to put on this empire's throne. Any more little sisters and he thought that he would probably get diabetes. Logan mostly worked his butt off to see to the affairs of the empire. He only had enough time to meet Claire, and he didn't worry about Davis while he had no idea what to do about Clara. Clara became a 5-year-old. She started cultivating normally like any child in the capital city would do when they reach this age, but she unhinderedly tried to make quick progress in cultivation. She reached low-level meridian refinement stage, and was already on the verge of breaking through to the mid-level of meridian refinement stage. But a day before, she was even gutsier than Davis, and had tried cultivating body tempering cultivation system, only to fail miserably. She couldn't bear the pain and fainted. The remaining energy in her body went berserk, and considerably damaged her small body. Fortunately, it was not fatal as Logan was beside her at that time. Logan, who had allowed her to cultivate body cultivation system, got severe thrashings from Claire. Of course, it had been all in Claire's room, or he would have lost his face big time. He didn't say anything as he also felt guilty about Clara. Davis, who had heard this incident, became worried and stayed with Clara in her room from yesterday. She still didn't wake up. Davis looked at her face warmly as he held her hand. Clara also tightly held his hands, but it was unknown whether she did it consciously or subconsciously. "Why are you trying so hard, Clara?" Davis muttered as he sighed again. He didn't know how many times he sighed like an old man from yesterday. He partially blamed himself for this accident as well. If only I had watched her properly. If only I had paid attention to her from that time. After all I said that to Mother about taking care of her, talk about pathetic. Thoughts like these were swirling around his head, making him severely depressed. Just as he was wallowing in his depression, Clara's hand slightly twitched. It woke Davis up from his depression, and he anxiously shouted. Clara. Clara, who was lying in her bed, opened her eyes slowly as if her eyelids were heavy. Seeing that she was fine, Davis heaved a sigh of relief, much different from the previous depressive sighs he released. Brother? She weakly smiled at him and called. Seeing that weak smile on her face, Davis lost himself in immense guilt. He felt like something was stabbing his heart. Clara, I'm sorry, it's all Brother's fault. I shouldn't have left you alone at that time, no matter what. I've caused you meaningless sufferings, I'm so sorry, even though you worked so hard, I've closed my eyes. Clara suddenly placed her finger on his lip as she weakly smiled, making him stop. It isn't Brother's fault. A single sentence. That single sentence was like a spear that pierced through his resistance as he felt his guilt dissolve into boundless love. A single tear fell from his eyes as he bit his lips. Why? Why do you try so hard? Davis feebly asked. He couldn't understand. Clara was just 5 years old, and there was no need for her to be this hasty. In his eyes, she was a little girl who should be playing and smiling all day before falling asleep with a cute expression on her face. But she wasn't like that. He was a special case since he was a transmigrator, and knew what he was getting into, and it wasn't as if he was blindly jumping into cultivation either. Only after learning all the possible methods and consequences had he decided to take this step. Clara slowly sat up and tightly embraced her brother, as if she wouldn't let him go no matter what, because I want to stay with Brother forever. This time, she didn't try to hide anything as she realized what she had gotten into had equally harmed her brother. She had never seen her elder brother shed a tear before, so it had even more impact on her all the more. Davis stood there stunned. He could feel her pure emotions of wanting to be with him by looking at her innocent face. He became dumbfounded. Then, why was she avoiding them? Wasn't she avoiding all of them for a reason? Why? Why me? Only you were there for me. Clara weakly replied as she bit her lips. Me? What about father and mother? Mother and father both, they both lie to me from time to time as if they practiced it beforehand. Even other people in the imperial castle lie and deceive, and it makes me very scared. Only Brother didn't lie to me. Being with you makes me comfortable. Mother and father lied. It can't be. Davis shook his head. I'm telling the truth, my eyes have said so. In turn, Clara desperately uttered. Davis nodded. You truly think so? I believe my eyes. Then, Brother will verify it for you. Davis smiled. Clara became stunned. No. Before she can even reply, Davis sent a crystal transmission to Logan and Claire that Clara had woken up, and was immediately requesting their presence. It's fine. Brother will protect you. Davis strongly replied as he held her small shoulders. MHM. Clara nodded her head, nervously. Previously, she was worried, but now that her brother had reassured her, she felt heartened. Meanwhile, Davis thought, lies. What possible lies? This is getting rather out of hand. Even I have no way to tell if they are lying or not. I guess that I'll just have to ask them directly in front of Clara. Indirectly confronting them can also possibly lead to Clara losing trust in me. No matter what, I just want to avoid that as much as possible. Not even a minute passed before both of them simultaneously showed up in Clara's room. It could be seen that they were truly anxious. Clara. Are you fine? Both of them asked simultaneously. Worry could be seen in their eyes, but they also maintained some distance from Clara, afraid that she might possibly show rejection to them. Clara nodded head but didn't dare to look in their eyes as she thought that she would get into trouble soon. If she had looked into their eyes, then she would have noticed the worry and care in their eyes. Seeing that she kept her head down, both of them looked at Davis with a questioning gaze. Cough. Mother and father. Clara and I want to talk to you too about something. Clara visibly trembled, albeit slightly. Talk. Is it a serious matter? Logan probed. Depends. Perfect, I have something to talk about to you too as well, Claire replied. I think what Mother wants to talk about, and what we want to talk about is the same. Claire had a puzzled expression on her face. Davis's expression became solemn. Now, I have a question to ask of you, and you both must answer honestly. Seeing that they were both clueless, he changed his attitude towards them for the sake of his adorable little sister. One could see that Logan and Claire had question marks flying all over their faces. They both couldn't figure out why Davis became serious all of a sudden. The two of you should know that lying to Clara is forbidden since she possesses the transcendent truth eyes. Not only would it give a bad impression, but it will also hurt Clara. Have you both ever lied to Clara before? Davis asked in a solemn tone. After thinking for a few seconds, Claire answered, I don't think I ever lied to Clara. Me neither. Logan shrugged with an innocent expression on his face. Davis turned his head only to see Clara being stunned. Her eyes were glowing, indicating that her eyes were active. Which is it, Clara? Are they telling the truth? My eyes seem to say that they are telling the truth. Clara uttered with a stunned expression on her face. Davis seemed to relax as he let out a breath visibly. Clara had a confused yet wronged expression on her face. But, how? My eyes had also said to me way before that they have lied to me. Clara, believe me. We have never lied to you before. Claire uttered as she took a step forward. A misunderstanding. Davis softly muttered while he tried to make sense of the situation. Not a lie. If it is not a lie, could it possibly be harmless deceit? He considered. Clara, what exactly did Mother say when your eyes said that she lied to you? Davis narrowed his eyes as he asked. Clara got out of her bed and stood beside Davis. There are many instances of Mother and Father lied to me, she said with a wronged expression on her face. It was apparent that she held some grievance in her heart. Many? All three of them were visibly dumbfounded. Clara gathered her courage and said with a determined face. One such instance is when Mother said that she was going to the bathroom when I was around 3 years old. Mother only came to me after more than an hour. I questioned what she was doing there for so long, and she said that she was enjoying the bath, and so that it had taken her long to come out. Clara sniffled as she sobbed, I was waiting for her so long, yet she lied to me. Seeing that the three of them looked at her with furrowed brows and confused expressions, she clenched her small teeth and continued. Another instance was when Father was playing with me. He rarely plays with me, and even so, he says that he is really busy. One day when Father was playing with me, I accidentally fell asleep, and when I woke up, what I saw was Father beating Mother from behind her. He even hit her back with his hand. They then quickly separated when they saw me wake up. I saw it. Don't you try to deny it, Father. Mother's face was red, and she must have been really in pain. Clara began to cry while pointing her fingers at them. And when I asked Father about it, he said that he was just playing with her. Lies, all lies, wah. Clara cried and sniffled. Tears kept coming out of her eyes as she was unable to stop it. And when I asked Mother about it, she also said that she was playing with him. Wah, brother. They're just lying to me all the time. Oh no. All right, stop. Clara, it's enough, I've already understood. Davis embraced and comforted her while patting her back. Clara kept crying, pouring out her emotions over to her brother that she held in her heart. After a few minutes of consoling, she finally stopped crying. Davis then let her out of his embrace. He then turned around and glared at his parents. Without even letting out a word of excuse, they both put their head down in shame. Inwardly he sighed. He could understand that they had little time to approach each other intimately as they had their duties as the Emperor and the Empress, but shouldn't they keep themselves properly in check in front of the abnormally smart and little Clara? All right, Mother and Father, care to explain yourselves to Clara? They both stayed silent, still hanging their heads low. Brother? Does this mean that they admit that they have lied to me? Clara innocently asked, her face stained with tears. Sigh, Clara, they didn't lie to you. But. Davis shook his head, they deceived you. Clara was taken aback. Deceive? Me? But why? Why don't you ask them yourselves, Clara? Go ahead. Your brother is here, they will answer you. Davis smiled at her gently. Inside his heart, he was laughing his ass off. He didn't want to let them easily go after they had created this mess. Clara nodded her adorably with a worried expression on her face. But when she turned around, her expression became solemn. Nevertheless, it was still cute. Mother. Why did you deceive me? There was no answer. Davis could see their eyes darting around. He could faintly guess that they were having a conversation using soul transmission. Father. Why did you deceive me? Clara wasn't giving up. Her eyes moistened up again as tears formed over her eyes. Claire and Logan looked at each other's faces and sighed. Clara, it's too soon for you to know, Logan said. Davis narrowed his eyes. Seems like they're not going to admit it yet. Clara, when you said that father was beating mother, he was just using his PP too. All right, I'll tell you. Shut up, Davis, Logan shouted out of shame. Then tell fast, Clara, and I don't have all day. We're busy with cultivation, Davis smirked as he patted Clara's shoulders. Clara cast a glance at her brother in admiration, astonished at the fact that he can even talk back to their father at his age. Logan visibly raged while Claire just stayed silent. When she heard his PP, she froze. Even though she did not know what it exactly meant, she could vaguely realize it. Fine. Logan calmed down and said. Clara, I and your mother were just procreating at the time when we deceived you. At your age, you shouldn't know all these things. Clara's face became confused. She could tell that they were telling the truth, but she couldn't understand why they would deceive her for this reason. Why? Isn't it just an act of sticking a male's genital into a female's one? What's so special about that mother and father deceived me into hiding it from me? You. Logan and Claire were entirely shocked to hear what their 5-year-old daughter was speaking. Davis also became shocked but then sighed in realization. He came to understand her mentality quite well. You too. Davis shouted. His shout instantly grabbed everyone's attention, pulling Logan and Claire out of their anger. Both of you are just forgetting that Clara is just a child capable of complex thoughts and emotions, not an adult capable of complex thoughts and emotions. Even if a child utters the word sex, that child will only think of gender while adults will surely think of procreation. What she said is purely from her knowledge of reading books without any in-depth meaning to it. He paused a moment before sneering, unlike you two with impure thoughts all day long. Logan's veins popped up in his head while he clenched his fists, while Claire put her head down in shame. But they understood why they were wrong. They subconsciously treated Clara as a second Davis momentarily as she spoke something outrageous like her carefree brother. Davis is inwardly an adult and Clara is a child in terms of mentality. They realized that they were wrong to treat them the same at this time. Clara, father and mother meant no harm. It was all for your sake. Davis tried to convince her. Clara nodded gently, her eyes showing faith in him. I believe in brother. Glad to hear that, so it's all okay now, right? He asked doubtfully. Yes, I guess all the problems were with my eyes. She muttered regretfully, when will I be able to master it? Don't worry about that. You just believe in yourself but also don't let a person's lie affect your mentality. Always be warm to your family, got it? Davis warned out of care. MH. Clara replied vividly. A brilliant smile appeared on her face as she narrowed her eyes.